This is The Drive with Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. SNR, Steelers Nation Radio.
And welcome to another special edition of The Drive here in Palm Beach, Florida. We are in our final day here of coverage from the Breakers. And earlier today we heard from Steelers president Art Rooney II and talked about a lot of the rule change stuff, but also talked about Aaron Rodgers and was the most optimistic of anybody that of course, talked to Mike Tomlin here. We talked to Omar Khan here. We talked to Mike Tomlin twice. And I was kind of surprised that Art Rooney II was as optimistic as he was regarding the potential signing of Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, a little bit different tone, and we're going to listen to that as we hear it coming up here. A little bit different tone from the owner as opposed to the GM and head coach, who didn't put it to the side or anything. I mean, they acknowledged that it's out there, obviously.
Right.
And wasn't, we know how football speak is and coach speak is. A lot of times they'll dance around questions and things, but they didn't do that. But they didn't say, oh, feeling good about it.
It's looking good.
Right.
He is Matt Williamson, by the way. Yeah. I am Dale Lolley. We are the regular crew here on The Drive. We'll be joined hopefully later in the show by Max Starks. He had some other stuff going on here. We'll hopefully get Jerry Dulac of the Post-Gazette on here as well. But let's hear what Art Rooney II had to say today when we had him just a couple hours ago, actually.
So just to get started, I guess I'll start with the Tush push rule, but did not pass and got, I guess, tabled for further discussion. A lot of long discussion about it. I think there's more to come on it, but no approval of it today. And other than that, happy to answer any questions.
What was the concern about that, Art? Was it injuries? Was it a target? It just seemed to target only two teams, or what?
I think it was a combination of things. It also got into a discussion about, there are other similar kinds of plays where, we have these scrums downfield where guys are pushing the pile, and why aren't we addressing that while we're addressing this? So it got into a number of different things that came up that just, I guess it seemed like it was better off tabling it and coming back and talking about it more later.
Do you need more data? Because it's only been a couple of years you've had this to look at.
Yeah, I think some people want to see more data too, yeah.
As the rule was presented in this form, were you in favor of it or against
we
it?
were in favor of the rule as
banning
proposed, yeah. It's a fairly narrow proposal in terms of just eliminating the ability to push the quarterback on a quarterback sneak, so we were in favor of that.
And you like the overtime back to the rule change to the
Yeah,
regular season?
we're good with that.
Kickoff as well, moving it to the 35?
It's okay. I'm not 100% sure I'm in love with this rule, but we'll see how it goes for another year.
So it's just one more year they didn't make
No,
it?
it's in. It can be amended, obviously,
Yeah.
but no, I think we want to. It's a permanent rule now. Yeah.
They said there were parts that were being tabled though on the kickoff, or what passed, what didn't?
The onside kick portion was tabled for further discussion, and so everything else was passed.
Are you satisfied with how replay review has expanded? Were you in favor of it, or would you like to see more?
Yeah. Well, we didn't exactly expand replay. It's replay assist, as they call it, which is a little different than a full review. And as long as it doesn't keep slowing the game down too much, we're in favor of it.
And is it that you can't throw a flag that wasn't already thrown, but it could assist in picking up a flag that was thrown?
You can pick up a flag, but you cannot put a flag on the field through replay, right?
Your proposal on free agent, being able to contact free agents via video or phone is now like up to 5, during the negotiating. How do you think that's going to impact how well you guys do in free agency?
Well, it's hard to predict how well we'll do in free agency. I do think it's an improvement in terms of really being able to talk to the player himself rather than just his agent in that negotiating window. So, we think it's an improvement.
How about the playoff seeding, Art? Based on
we were against the playoff seeding. Look, we think that division rivalries are one of the more important parts of the competition, and just don't want to do anything to upset that.
You got shot down?
Yes.
Yes, I figured.
Yeah.
Art, outside of the rules, you guys are headed to Ireland. How excited are you for that?
we're excited to be going to Ireland, and told the league we need more tickets. The demand so far has been great, and we're looking forward to it.
Is that behind the green suit jacket today, the celebrating the
Yeah,
Ireland
I've
game?
been wearing my green suit jacket a lot lately, yes.
Masters is next week, you know?
Yeah.
What can you tell us, Art, about Aaron Rodgers in the pursuit of him?
Nothing new on the Aaron Rodgers front. We'll see what happens, and hopefully we'll know something soon.
Are you content to wait?
Well, not forever, but a little while longer.
Did you envision it taking this long and playing out the way that it has?
No, didn't envision it taking this long, no.
How was the meeting? How do you characterize getting to meet him and go through that process?
It was good to meet him, yeah. We talked about Pittsburgh and all the Pittsburgh coaches he's had over the years, and we talked about Greenfield and how much he knows about Greenfield, and so, yeah, we had a good conversation.
Why does he know Greenfield? Because of McCarthy?
Yeah. McCarthy always talked about Greenfield, I guess.
There have now been some photos and videos of him throwing with DK Metcalf. Omar said yesterday that if it happened, it'd be a good thing. Do you view it as a good thing? You're trying to read the tea leaves to figure out which way he's leaning, things like that?
I mean, I would say it was a good sign that he wanted to do that, and we keep hearing that he's I guess headed in our direction, and so that seems to be, all signs are positive so far.
So you have a good feeling about it? Oh, but you have a good feeling?
Yeah, I mean, we keep getting positive sort of signals about it, so I'd say we feel pretty good about it at this point.
How about in general, the way free agency has gone? What are your thoughts on what you've been able to acquire and what maybe you'd still like to do?
I think overall it's gone well. I mean, we've picked up some players that I think can help us, and so doors still open, and we'll see what happens. But I guess from here on in, main focus will be getting ready for the draft.
That was Steelers President Art Rooney II earlier today with the assembled media here down in Palm Beach, and optimistic.
Yeah, real good interview. Great tone to it. No, you're right.
Optimistic that the Steelers are going to, that Aaron Rodgers, as he said, is headed our way. Mm-hmm. So, and we've talked a lot about this, and I think people feel some of the.
There was just such a rush, Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I get that, and I just want to be clear with my stance on this whole Aaron Rodgers thing, because apparently people are looking at this. Well, you said on this date, and look, my problem or my issue with Aaron Rodgers and the potential signing of Aaron Rodgers is if Aaron Rodgers is going to sign here, I want Aaron Rodgers to be all in here.
Sure.
He can't be going to Egypt during minicamp. Mm-hmm. He can't be, he can't be skipping all the OTA sessions and things of that nature. And to that point,
I don't think you had a problem with him doing McAfee necessarily.
No, I don't care.
He's got
about
a life,
that.
right?
Ben Roethlisberger had his own show on the Fan for years.
A lot of players do.
Yeah,
right.
A lot of players do.
Right.
I've done shows with players.
Yeah, right.
On Tuesday nights with Antonio Brown, Stephon Tuitt. I've done it with several different guys we've sat in. I did a show with LeGarrette Blount the week before he walked off the field.
Okay.
So that I don't have a problem with that at all. Guys are going to do what they're going to do in their off time, but you have to be in. You have to be bought into this. You can't have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. And to that point, the fact that Aaron Rodgers took it upon himself or agreed to go throw with DK Metcalf, I see as a very positive sign that he is bought in.
I 100% agree. And I think by no means all of a sudden the day he signs, Randall Cobb's going to come the next day, and Lazard,
and
that
all was an
things.
issue.
Right. I thought he took advantage of the situation.
I thought so as well, and I think maybe he learned a little something about the process as well. Look, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
I can't just have everybody that I want here. I can't handpick my offensive coordinator. I can't do this. I can't bring in 7 of my buddies and have this work because it just didn't work in New York. So again, if he's willing to make these kind of concessions and do those kind of things, okay.
Yeah, if he's all in, no question.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think there's a lot of talent there. We can discuss a player at a later date and what they bring, but I think that he gives you a better chance to win from what I saw last year than the other 2 quarterbacks.
And certainly,
and it could go wrong.
A better chance to win than anybody who is currently available.
Exactly.
That's the other big part of this. All right, you dance with the girl that you're there with. And so if that's what what you have, and you have to look at what was available this offseason to acquire.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Justin Fields, they tried to sign him.
There was interest there,
It didn't work out. Okay, so now where do you go?
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't interested in Jameis Winston or going down one of those roads. So, I like the re-signing of Mason Rudolph because I know what Mason Rudolph is. I know, he knows.
Yeah, he's stable.
Yeah, there's some stability there. Would I be comfortable with Mason as my 17-game starter? No. But if he had to start 3 games,
sure,
because of an injury or something, or if the same situation arose this year that did last year, and Mason Rudolph has to start the first 6 games of the season, I'm fine with that because he's a high-end backup.
Yeah.
But that's what he is.
But he's a backup. Right.
He's a backup.
And he did play really well last time we saw him here. But that was a short stretch, and it still wasn't championship-level football.
No.
You
saw what that looked like in the
playoffs,
playoffs, and it was a 17-point loss.
Mm-hmm.
But Aaron Rodgers, again, if he's bought in, if he's part of the team and he's willing to do that. That was the thing about, Russell Wilson that I thought was really, honestly, one of his best attributes was he was well liked in that locker room.
And respected.
And he was the one that reached out to Cam Hayward. He was the one that reached out to T.J. Watt. He reached out to Minkah Fitzpatrick to tell them how he wanted to fit into that locker room, not that he was going to come in and take over that locker room.
Right.
And I don't know if any of that stuff has happened here with Jerry.
You're right in front of the camera, Jerry.
we got Jerry Dulac. Jerry Dulac's waiting here in the wings to come on here, and you got to see.
Got a close up.
You got a nice early look at Jerry's flashy
backside
shirt here,
right.
Anyways, yeah. I mean, if that's the case, and Aaron Rodgers has bought into this, then I feel differently about it. But I don't want to deal with Aaron Rodgers being in Egypt for minicamp.
100%. And a huge key to me too is this should not prohibit the long-term plan.
No,
it was
not at
Omar
all.
that said we're looking for a long-term answer. This is, a nice short-term fix. It could be more than that. Who knows? I mean, but I think it's not at all prohibitive to drafting one that you love this year or especially next year.
Yeah. So again, if he's bought in and he wants to be part of this, then fantastic. Maybe you catch lightning in a bottle and you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers signing Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not predicting that.
No, I know.
But
right.
Is it beyond the realm of possibilities? No.
No, he's I want to say great is underselling. He's once the best player in the league. Right.
He's a 4-time NFL MVP.
Wasn't that long ago, right?
Yeah. So, anyways, let's get to a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Jerry Dulac of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette and the Steelers Audio Network. We are live here in Palm Beach, Florida, where the NFL League meetings are wrapping up today here at the Breakers. He's Matt Williamson. I'm Dale Lolley. We'll be back with more right after this. And we are back. I'm Dale Lolley here with Matt Williamson, and we're joined now by Jerry Dulac of the Post-Gazette and also of the Steelers Audio Network. And, Jerry, it's been I don't want to say an eventful weekend in terms of what we have gathered, but I thought Art Rooney II was as optimistic as we've heard anybody talk about the Aaron Rodgers situation.
Yeah, I would say it's been an interesting couple days, and by his standards, based on what we heard from Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan about the situation, which was next to nothing, Art Rooney was basically effusive about in his comments about Aaron Rodgers. It wasn't just, we did meet with him and we're hopeful. He went so far as to say it's headed in our direction and we feel good about it, and all signs have been very positive. And so, he was very forthcoming, especially for Art.
That surprised me.
Me too. I did not expect that.
Yeah.
I expected more along the lines of what Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan said.
Yes, we met with him.
Right.
We'll see where it goes.
Their comments didn't surprise me because I knew they were just going to take he's a free agent. We don't talk about players who aren't here. I get that. But I was a little surprised Art said that. You know what? Good for him.
Yeah.
Has everybody talking about it.
Absolutely. So we've been talking about this now for weeks. as I'm sure you've been writing about it for weeks, as I have.
Fortunately, this time of year, I don't have to do a lot of talking, Dale.
Correct.
Unlike you, who
We
have
do a
to do
lot,
it 5 days a week.
So, what is your general feeling about what you feel Aaron Rodgers can bring to this team?
Well, I'll go back to the beginning where I just thought I don't understand what their interest is in a 41-year-old quarterback who won 5 games last year with 3 receivers who were much better than what the Steelers had. And knowing what we know, not that I know because nobody knows Aaron Rodgers, but what we read about Aaron Rodgers and just kind of what a different duck he is, he just seemed like not a Steeler fit. He did not seem like a guy who would be part of their, quote, culture. But Mike Tomlin wanted him. If Art Rooney didn't want him, then he wouldn't be in the running. But Art obviously is in agreement that Aaron Rodgers is the guy they want to pursue. And, you know, Dale, it's very easy to kind of be whimsical about, well, if Aaron Rodgers can play like he did 7 or 8 years ago, it's a pretty good deal.
Right.
But you got to face the reality. He's going to be 42 in December. We saw what he did last year. I've always thought, you know, Matt, because a guy who studies quarterbacks and players, I always thought that Aaron Rodgers was the greatest thrower of the football I've ever seen.
Maybe ever, yeah. I mean, just controlling the football and everything about it, arm angles and all that type of thing, right? He still has that.
He can still do that.
Yes, he can.
Absolutely.
What he doesn't have anymore is the escapability or the ability. Okay, you need 7 yards, and he runs for 8.
Right.
And just breaks your. It was very Patrick Mahomes-like. Pre-Patrick Mahomes. Like he was a sneaky runner.
Yes.
You get man coverage, everyone turns their back, he slides first down and breaks your heart.
Yeah.
You know?
No, obviously he's a smart guy. He knows what he's looking at when he gets to the line of scrimmage, all that. And what it does is it kind of mirrors what they did last year with Russell Wilson, was bring in that guy, a proven winner, to, okay, let's finally win a playoff game and at least get back on track. Does it make him a Super Bowl contender? Not by any stretch, but it takes the first step back, which is, okay, let's win a playoff game, because there's some immediacy to all this.
Sure.
And that's what's behind the move to get him, just as it was with Russell Wilson.
Jerry, I don't know if you agree, but I don't think this is a case of musical chairs where this is just the last chair, you know, where it's everyone at the dance couples up and the last 2 people are looking at each other and like, I don't have anywhere to go and we don't have a quarterback. Let's do this. You know, I think there's a lot more mutual interest and excitement than that. You know, there wasn't a ton of options this year either.
No, that's right.
You know,
and that's an interesting way of putting it. And you know, you look at it from Aaron Rodgers' perspective. Right now, the only 2 options for him appear to be the Steelers and retirement. I've never bought into the Vikings. Because
I think that's largely manufactured.
From their standpoint.
I think he told the Giants.
Yeah, and so that's out. Yeah. And so, like the Vikings, why would they? That's why they moved on from Sam Darnold, because they have J.J. McCarthy. They're not going to bring in Aaron Rodgers, and have Sam Darnold sit for another year after he missed all of last year. So, from the Vikings' perspective, why would they want him? And because of J.J. McCarthy, why would Aaron Rodgers want to go there and potentially be a backup if they're going to play their last year's number 1 pick, which, of course, they have said they're going to do. So that's why that never made sense to me.
No.
And now that Russell Wilson signed with the Giants, it appears to be the Steelers or nobody.
I would imagine the Steelers told Wilson, thanks but no thanks, to Russ.
Oh, there's no Russ,
yeah.
And at one point, while they claimed quietly that he was an option, if he was an option, he was really at the bottom of the totem pole.
Okay.
Because even before at the last minute when he signed with the Giants, he was back in touch with the Steelers. Okay, are you sure that this is done? Okay, I'm signing with the Giants. So Russ wanted to stay here, and really, at the end of the year, I thought that was their best option, to continue with some a continuity. You know, the same quarterback again.
Yeah.
You know, you won 10 games.
And you trade for Metcalf, who he played with in Seattle and was a deep ball guy.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean,
but it was apparent that was really, it was an option in theory, but it really wasn't in practicality.
Yeah, and to me, I felt that with what they had at what they now have at wide receiver, Wilson would have made a lot of sense, because you've got 2 outside the number guys that, you know, can get deep and vertical. That's what Wilson does now. But, you start looking at what Aaron Rodgers does, it's going to open up the middle of the field a little bit more in terms of that.
I think a lot more quick hitters, a lot more quick game, a lot of three-step drops. Right.
They tried it the Russell Wilson way last year, and obviously, that wasn't good enough. And so they felt even though they'd upgraded the wide receiver position, they kind of had been down that part of the journey. You're kind of picking your journey here, and people say, well, they don't have a plan. There's a plan.
Oh, they got a plan.
They're just not going to. They're not going to announce it to everybody.
Right.
Nobody does that.
Printouts.
Yeah.
And mail them out to the ticket.
Right. They're not renting a billboard and putting a plan on it.
The plan is you're going to you're probably going to draft a quarterback this year. It won't be in the first round. It's probably going to be a fourth round guy somewhere in that range, to be a potential starter down the road. You'll take a look at him, see how he works out. That doesn't preclude you from drafting one next year in the first round if there's somebody there that you like and you have all these comp picks stacked up.
Dale, I think the Steelers' plan is that they are all in 2026 for a quarterback.
I think that's the right move.
You have time. It's not just the comp picks. There's a possibility. They could trade. Pick your guy, maybe the wide receiver. At some point by November, they could trade and maybe get a second-round pick, an additional one, and now you take that additional second-round pick. You take one of those comp picks and you move up in the first round, because if they're drafting 18, 19, 20, 21, which has been the spot typically for the most part, you have to move up to go get that guy. And so I think their plan is they are all in because they know they can't continue this musical chairs revolving door at quarterback, and it's time.
It's been 5 years.
They tried it with Kenny
right.
Pickett. Obviously, it didn't work. That doesn't mean you don't go try it again.
Absolutely. You have to keep trying until you get that guy.
That's right.
It took them 20 years between Bradshaw and Ben to find the next guy. It's not, they drafted Cordell Stewart in the second round. Before that, it was Mark Malone in the first round.
Right.
But in between that, it was a lot of, Neil O'Donnell was a third-round pick.
Trading for David Woodley. Don't forget that.
Right. That's where you're at when you don't have a quarterback. Doesn't mean you're the Browns. The Browns have tried numerous times drafting first-round quarterbacks
first
and trading,
overall
and trading for
picks,
quarterbacks
right.
and doing all that stuff, and none of them have worked out because they haven't built around those guys.
I was reminded today, believe it or not, from a person in the weekly chat that I do, of a conversation that I had with Bill Cowher a couple years ago, and this person said, do you think Mason Rudolph can be a Neil O'Donnell type? And I thought, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
You can win.
They could be that.
Pretty similar.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
They have some similarities. Wow, yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely think, I know the Steelers feel they could probably win 10 games with Mason. Now, are they going to be a Super Bowl contender? No.
Probably doesn't win you a playoff game. That's
Right.
you're not going to be a contender in the playoffs.
Right.
You saw that a couple of years ago. Yes. Could he conceivably start and you could be successful? Yes.
Yeah.
But not to the level of success that everybody seems to want, including the Steelers, which is to advance past the first round and see where you go in the second round or get to the AFC Championship or get to the Super Bowl. That's not going to happen with that situation.
And, fellas, the idea is that this guy should have been a tackle. Big enough. Max Starks is walking in here.
That cookie's in trouble.
The consensus is next year's quarterback class is better than this one because it appears that basically there's two guys in the first round, and then there's a bit of
region,
a bit of a drop off. I don't know where Jackson Dart fits in there. I know a lot of people want the Steelers to take him at 21. That ain't happening. But whereas next year, it appears the class is a little better.
It appears. You just
don't know.
You don't
That's
know.
right.
You don't know.
Guys could
No.
stay in school. I mean, not Christian Hackenberg.
That guy, Drew Aller, right?
Yeah, Drew Aller, who's
the same guy.
they're the same dude. But everybody said, well, he's coming out this year, and he decided to stay in school.
Right.
Carson Beck was
Because
supposed
he would
to.
have had to take a pay cut.
Well, yeah, Carson Beck
All
was
you got.
supposed to be the number one guy available this year. He's not even at the same school.
Yeah, he got a pay raise.
He got a pay raise to go somewhere else. So you don't know in the age of NIL whether a guy's going to come out or not. We'll see. But again, Joe Burrow wasn't considered the top quarterback prospect, before his final year at LSU.
Right.
LSU.
After
So
he transferred from
yeah,
Ohio State.
guys will emerge, guys will drop off, but you have that ability next year. And if it's not next year, let's say there's nobody there that we got to move up to go get this guy. Okay, you can still move some of those picks into the following season and try again.
Right.
Because you're going to keep trying until you get that guy.
Yeah.
And as much as who the quarterbacks are in this class versus the unknowns in next class, I just think the organization could be in a lot better spot, a lot better landing spot for the new quarterback. I love that Rudolph's on a 2-year deal. I mean, everyone's signing 1-year deals now. He's going to be here, and he's probably going to be the same guy. Rodgers may or may not, but you might be coming off a year where, wow, we ran the ball really well in this second year Arthur Smith's offense, and we're taking the top off with these two behemoths downfield.
The offensive line is ready to
the
take
offense
off.
is in a lot more stable situation, to land that guy.
I think the other thing, too, in play here is if Rodgers doesn't sign, there's no question the Steelers have to go sign a veteran quarterback because they always believe in having two guys with past starting experience. So one way or the other, they're going to acquire another veteran quarterback. But if it's not Rodgers, then the guy they bring in will be brought in to be Mason's backup is basically the way it'll work. But when you give Mason Rudolph 2 years, $8 million, that's not even great backup money, but it's just backup money, and that's what he was brought in to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Jared, we'll let you go. I know
Thanks.
you got a busy day here. You're probably not going to make it to the golf course today.
A little
but,
too late for that tee
You're
time,
dressed
unless
for the golf.
I run right back out here. I need a belt, though. I can't go out untucked.
You can go play this little par 3 right behind us here.
I'd like to.
It's a long par 3.
The course itself, and I've played it before, it's like an executive course. There's short par 4s and a bunch of par 3s. But it's really it's a tidy little golf course because the greens are angled and they have a lot of bunkers.
And
it's
very tight.
Yes.
It's extremely
tight. It's a lot of fun to play, and it's not easy. It's not long, but it's not easy.
Absolutely. But our guest has been Jerry Dulac of the Post-Gazette and the Steelers Audio Network. Get to hear Jerry here at the end of the month with us again on all the draft coverage. Can't wait for that. We're just around the corner on that, Jerry.
Not long. 20. I see. I open up the first 2 nights, Thursday and Friday.
You're the opener. I'm the closer.
There you go. You're always the closer.
He's Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. We are here in Palm Beach where the league meetings are taking place at the Breakers. Jerry's going to jump out. Max Starks is going to hop in, and we'll continue with the show right after this. And we are back. I'm Dale Lolley here with Matt Williamson, and now Max Starks hopping in here in the seat of Jerry Dulac. Jerry warmed that up for you because it
nice
really needed to be warmed up today.
Yeah, exactly. In this weather, Gotta love this humidity. Yeah, no, it's great.
The memes or the thing that was out there this morning in all the TV shows was Mike Tomlin sweating yesterday in the breakfast.
Is that when the AC was kicked out, I assume?
Yeah, people need to understand the little tent or whatever you want to call these things, a little box.
Connex container?
Yeah, basically. There was no air conditioning in that thing, and there were about, I don't know, 250 people in that tiny room.
Yes.
And
everybody was sweating.
It was not built for 250 people. We probably broke some fire codes yesterday.
Definitely. We're glad the fire marshal did not walk in during that moment. And then we also had, what people don't realize is there's other behind us with other personnel.
And there were lights.
And there's lights in there and everything. I mean, it was hot. It was hot. We only had, when it broke out and we sat in there for like 10 minutes, it was like, nah, we can't be in here. Yeah, it's too hot.
So, I get it. But, as they say, never let them see you sweat. Well,
too late.
Everybody's sweating.
Everybody's sweating here now. It's just the way it is here. It is hot. But things are also heating up, Max, with the on the Aaron Rodgers front. You heard Art Rooney II earlier today, and he was as optimistic as and as effusive as I've heard any of the Steelers brass talk about Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, no, he was very adamant. The question was pointed to him. He didn't run away from it. He was like, hey, I'm expecting this, and I'm going to be patient for a little while longer in this process, but
for a little while longer,
yeah,
right?
A little while longer,
yeah.
But he was like, things went well. They asked about the visit as well, and so it seems like that. And then of course we get the videos yesterday that come in, and you're just like, well, that looks
sort of adds up.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, would you think the draft is the cutoff, though?
I have to.
I would have to think you need to know this.
I don't even think it goes that long.
I don't either. But
I honestly, if it goes past the next 10 to 14 days, I would be highly surprised.
It wouldn't shock me if we got off the plane tomorrow and the owners meeting stuff's done, and sign me up, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Like somebody was even kidding, like, hey guys, do you know this restaurant? Is there additional seat for somebody? Is he just going to show up? And I was like, that's a little too optimistic.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I mean, but I don't see it lasting that long.
So, Max, one of my issues at the beginning of this process with Aaron Rodgers was that if Aaron Rodgers is going to be a part of this, he has to be a part of it. He can't be skipping OTAs. He can't be in Egypt during minicamp. He can't be telling them, hey, you need to bring in Randall Cobb and Alan Lazard. And it has to be, no, this is what we've got. These are the guys you're working with. And you're going to be here and be a part of this. Or, okay, we're so you've been in the locker room before. You've been a part of this for a long time. You've seen situations. I mean, Ben wasn't at every OTA, but he didn't need to be at every OTA by the time he was a 10-year veteran.
He also wasn't a new guy.
He wasn't a new guy. The offense was. But when you bring in, say, for example, Todd Haley comes in as the offensive coordinator, you got a new offense to learn. Well, then he needs to be there because he's the team leader.
Exactly, and that's the same thing. I think for him, and you can't acquiesce. It's like, this is what we have to offer. Similar to Russell Wilson, right? Like, this is what we have to offer. We're not doing all of the extra stuff for this. This is what we're working with. This is what we're planning towards. Now, we'll let you, behind the curtain a little bit of the draft process once you agree to be on the team. But you are here. If you are QB1, you are here, and you have to be actively engaged.
Yes. Yeah.
And
which Russell Wilson did.
Yeah. Russ did an amazing job
really
of that.
good at that.
Yeah. Even when injured, super engaged,
yes.
right?
Yep. Absolutely.
And I think that's something that people kind of gloss over as far as Russell Wilson's time. They want to look at the on the field. But what he did behind closed doors set a different philosophy and a different culture that wasn't here before for a while. I'd always talk about this. The time during training camp, dude is injured, and every day in the evening, he was down on the field with a different position group.
Yeah.
Working with those guys, talking to those guys, trying to get to
Matters.
know those guys, because he knew eventually he would be in, and he didn't want to miss that time. If he's not getting the physical reps, he was getting all the mental and emotional reps necessary. So you want that same approach to kind of carry over if you're going to be a new guy joining this team.
And I just wonder, having gone down the other route with the Jets, if Aaron Rodgers didn't look at that and go, yeah, I probably screwed that up. Maybe I do need to do these things.
And, by the way, can you think of two different organizations than the Green Bay, Wisconsin Packers and the New York Jets? Just in terms of history, where they are in the world, ownership. I mean, night and day.
Yeah. 9 day, and you're kind of coming back.
You're coming
to
back
that.
to.
It's almost like the boomerang that went out. That was
right.
Swinging back. Like when you think of what the Packers organization is, Steelers organization is, very similar, older, traditional, successmental franchises.
A lot of rings.
Yeah, a lot of rings.
Family owned. I know they don't have an owner, but smaller town. Right.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is family owned. A lot of families own it.
yeah,
exactly. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. It's families owned. But there's a certain sense because of the market size, right? Like, we don't put up with that type of stuff. This is a very blue collar, very, very hardworking, and very passionate fan base. So your dedication, the way that this is not the lights and the glamour of New York City across the river or whatever.
Yeah.
However, technically it's in New Jersey, but it's not that. It's not that same
Different
glitz
world,
and glamour.
right.
Yeah, it's a different world, and so you have to act accordingly.
Different distractions off the field and different media and different everything.
Yeah,
right.
exactly. We're not and also the media here is not looking to punch holes through everything. Whereas New York, they're looking for the shock. They're looking for the awe. They're looking for the headline because there's like 20,000 of those guys trying to get that one little nugget.
That click.
We're homogenous here. It's like, hey, you do right, we acknowledge right. But when you do wrong, we will slap you on the wrist immediately.
I think part of it, too, to your point, and we've talked about this both on and off the air, the way that you guys, because you're in a smaller city in Pittsburgh, can hang out with each other. Whereas if you're in New Jersey / New York, all that stuff, like one guy may live
Manhattan,
as the crow flies. It's only 6 miles, but it's going to take me 2 hours to get those 6 miles, so we can't hang out.
It's not meet you in 15 minutes for a pizza. You know,
No,
right?
no,
That doesn't happen.
You can't be on the south side like, hey man, let's go down here.
If I'm in the North Hills getting to the south side, I can do it in 20 minutes or 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at there, Gibsonia, right? I mean, if you're in Ross Park, I mean, even, guys can get everywhere. And there's also places where guys can be together and be private. You know what I'm saying? Whereas in New York, there's no privacy, and you're competing with all the other distractions, celebrity and everything else, and the microscope. Like, you can go hang out.
There's paparazzi everywhere.
Yeah,
waiting to get
waiting for that one illicit moment. That's not here. We don't have people hanging out at every restaurant waiting to take a picture.
So Dale and I have talked somewhat of this, but really haven't gone deep into the deep end because he's not a Steeler yet. But yeah, I'm talking about his schematic fit, what he brings as a player. I don't know how much you've watched of him in the last 2 years or so, but like, what are some scheme things, some offensive things that you would expect to change if he becomes the guy?
Well, based off of what I saw from Arthur Smith's offense last
how
year
that
to
meshes
this year,
and right.
I just think, he's a guy, he's going to fit Smith's system because you're not asking the quarterback to be that mobile threat option. You love some RPO stuff off the edges as change-ups, but it wasn't a huge part of the game plan.
No.
So, the biggest thing is going to be running the ball effectively, utilizing your play action, utilizing your screen game. And I think Aaron Rodgers fits the screen game very well.
Without a doubt. He's one of the best to do it. Yeah,
I was going to say he has one of the best hides outside of Peyton Manning, when it comes to the play action fakes and then the toss back screens.
Well, and if you think about some of the stuff that Arthur Smith did with Ryan Tannehill when he was in Tennessee, some of that stuff where, play action, boom, right over the middle. The guy running that quick slant or a little skinny post, and boom, there,
Yeah,
and you've
shallow drags.
You've now added DK Metcalf to the equation.
I know those two are deep threats, but you're going to see more quick game. You're going to see more intermediate game. I mean,
especially I would say quick slant with DK
slant.
Metcalf.
Metcalf runs a great quick slant.
Yeah. I mean, his is tremendous.
Nobody's pressing
Nobody
him.
can get inside of him.
Yeah.
Once he makes that decision, it's over with. It's just hit him in the chest.
And then he boxes everybody out and try to get him on the ground, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so I think when you're talking about some of that short, that second and third and medium situations, that's where he's a great option. And as well, and then I think that brings along George Pickens. So now if you got two of those guys and guys are scared to crowd the box, there's wide open on those edges, especially if your team's running that traditional three down type of look where you got the edges coming. Boom, there's a spot right there in that curl flat zone that's going to be vacated immediately because the linebacker can't come across fast enough to cut underneath it.
I'd expect more in breakers in general too.
Yeah, and I think because we didn't do as much middle of the field, it's wide open. And whether that was Russ's hesitation, whatever Justin's inefficiency.
Well, and a lot of times there was an extra safety down in that box.
There was, but I mean, but because also the guys didn't throw him out of that.
They didn't throw it out of it. You're right.
They didn't throw him out of it, and they're like, well, this is Najee. This is three straight run plays.
But you had one guy who could get deep.
Yeah.
So the safety's going to shade towards George Pickens every time. The other safety's going to be in the box, and how you throwing it to Van Jefferson down the field. They bring in Mike Williams, and you tried to do some of that stuff, but he just wasn't.
He was Mike Williams.
He wasn't what he was.
There's a reason why he wasn't with Aaron Rodgers.
He wasn't.
Right.
Maybe he'll be better this year, a year removed. Another year removed from the knee injury, but he wasn't that guy that he had been with the Chargers.
No, he definitely wasn't.
And while I think Pickens is very capable, I'm not saying he's A.J. Brown with Tannehill. He was a little less than enthusiastic on some of the over-middle stuff, too.
Yeah,
I mean, that needs to change. And
well, I think
some of it can get discouraged, too.
Yeah,
he
can get
I'm not going to get the ball if I go over the middle.
Yeah, and he's not looking there, so why should I care?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you see the other guy getting 10, 12 extra balls, well, maybe I need to do this.
You're going to care.
Yeah, you're going to care a lot. Like, wait a second, he was getting success, and also there's no press, and I can kind of cut up the middle. Because here's the thing, he catch the ball inbounds, he cut to the middle. That's where he knew the extra yardage was going to be. He didn't like being on the sideline.
I don't know if Russ did this as much, but Bradshaw certainly did. I think Ben did. Brady certainly did. But Rodgers, through his career, I'm not throwing it to you. I mean, you'll get rewarded with the football or you'll get punished without it. I mean, you're going to earn getting the ball. Devontae Adams shows up, target.
Yeah.
You're running the wrong routes. Sorry, I'm not throwing you the football.
Well, and he tried with Mike Williams. You remember? He tried, and there was a critical situation. I can't remember who they were playing. Late in the game,
threw one down the
down the right sideline, and he messed it up and didn't run the right route. And he tried to come right back to him like, hey, let's get you back in this. he messed that one up. And he was like, nope, we're done.
Yeah.
I'm thinking more about like Pickens' future motivation, though. You know, if he's out there running wind sprints and not doing what he's supposed to do, Aaron's not going to throw him the football.
No, absolutely
no
not.
way.
Well, and if he's not blocking on the edge when it requires it, he's not going to forget that. Now, he is, I will say this, King Petty in a good way. Like, he does not forget those type of things. Mm-hmm. He wants everybody doing exactly what they're supposed to be.
Real attention to detail. I mean, even like his pre-snap stuff. And, I mean, you're a little bit slow on your defensive substitutions. He's snapping it and get 12 guys. I mean, he does all those little things so well.
Yeah, he wants the untimed down. He wants the extra play, the free ball. He loves the free ball.
And then you're going to go, and then he's chucking it
all
deep
the time.
every time.
He's the best I've ever seen at that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Ask the Lions. They hated it. They were happy when he left the division.
Speaking of that, so last night we get back. We were at the league party last night to pull back the curtain.
Yeah.
We all rode the Uber back over. I get into the room. I get the NFL Network on, and they're playing back a bunch of Steeler games. And the one that was on when I got back was 2016. I think it was 2016 against the Lions when Ben did the fake spike. Insert the AB.
Against Cowboys.
Against Cowboys. I'm sorry, against the Cowboys.
You texted me Lions, and then you're like, no, it's Cowboys.
Then later in the night, I woke up. I left the thing on. I wake up, and it was I see Max Starks is on TV, and it was a game against the Patriots in 04.
Oh, God,
the 04 game against the Patriots.
I still, Willie McGinnis.
I'm like, is this just Steeler night on NFL Network?
The homage, the homage night, yeah. God,
I caught the end of that Cowboys game, or at least the fourth quarter, and I urge people just to remember to think Tomlin's so conservative.
He's so conservative. They're throwing the ball all over the damn place.
There was 8 2-point tries in that game. I mean, they're throwing the fake spike. I'm like, don't forget this version of the head coach. I mean,
and that's the thing.
And I'm like, quarterbacks matter.
Yeah, quarterbacks matter.
That was my biggest takeaway
with those
game.
guys.
Yeah.
Like, you want to know that guy can accomplish what you want, what you intend to, and I think people kind of forget that.
Yeah.
Like Ben's last year was not like it wasn't the
It wasn't 2016
Ben.
Ben.
It wasn't
not
that guy,
2016
right.
Ben. And also the guys you had after. You had a rookie. You had Mr. Trubisky, right? You had Mason.
Mm-hmm.
They're not.
Yeah, you're going to have a little bit more restrictions on there. You're going to put the restrictor plate on those guys because, I don't want my. I worked for a go-kart track when I was in high school, and we had restrictor plates on the go-karts because we didn't want people out there going. The carts would go 60.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't want them going 60.
No.
So because they're not experienced enough to drive those things at 60 around that cart, or around that track. But if somebody was screwing up out there, I'd take the restrictor. Okay, I'm taking it out, and I would go out and just get in front of them, slow them down. All right, you're not going to bump into everybody. Yeah. That's what you do. You can't if you're not experienced enough to handle 60, then I'm going to make sure you drive 35.
Exactly.
We can still get around the track.
Well, it's just like when you play a video game, right? You have to unlock rewards as you progress through the game, right?
Earn them, yeah.
I'm just not going to give you all of the goodies at front. You have to earn those things.
Yeah.
You got to hit the little question mark every once in a while, and get the mushroom. I mean, and you earn that respect. I mean, just like in any job, right? You're not going to get a promotion just because you're there. It's like let your merit earn more opportunities, more responsibility, and the same thing goes. I mean, early on, like Russ earned that, and then he showed it, and then you had to dial it back. And then for Justin, as Justin unlocked a little bit more, came open to him, and of course he didn't unlock everything. And then, so it's a comfortability. And at that point, like you said, in 2016, he'd been with Ben for 10 years.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's like, yeah.
There was a lot of trust built up there.
I think we're good.
Yeah, there was a lot of trust.
Yeah.
I know we're probably up against it, but big thing I took away from that game, obviously, was, how good Ben is and how different they coach with him in the game, and Bell and Brown and all those things. But then I looked at the other side, too, and I'm like, Dak Prescott was a fourth-round rookie in that game, and I kind of forgot how good his nest and supporting cast was.
Ezekiel Elliott was awesome.
Elliott was like on pace to win the MVP at that point.
That O-line.
Des Bryant's in his prime.
The O-line was awesome.
They had Dez, they had Witten. They were both really, really good at that point. And they had Fredrickson, who was a great center, Martin, who's going to the Hall of Fame, and Tyron Smith before back injuries. I'm like, Dak deserves all the credit in the world, but if you can drop next year's quarterback into a similar situation here, you kind of might see what you saw that year.
It was also interesting watching Stephon Tuitt and Ryan Shazier out there.
I much thought those two. Wish they were still around.
Man, they're not here.
Right. Kind of counting on those two.
Yeah. A lot of those dudes are still playing this game. Those guys were young guys playing in that game, and they're no longer here.
Yeah. I thought the same
unfortunately. Anyways, let's get to a break. He is Max Starks. That's Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to this special edition of The Drive. We are live here in Palm Beach, Florida, where the league meetings are taking place. That's going to do it for hour number 1. We'll be back with hour number 2 right after this. Max Starks and Matt Williamson here in the Breakers Hotel parking lot.
Yeah, pretty much.
More or less. We're in a parking area, I guess.
This is, or you could say this is the
holding area, staging area.
Yeah, staging area, holding pen. Also, there is a course behind this backdrop.
The 13th hole is right behind us.
Yeah, nice par 3 here.
I mean, Dale, your right foot is on a white line that cars park between.
I do believe cars do park there, yeah.
So I think it's pretty clear it's a parking lot.
Yeah. So, guys, some rule changes today. Nothing, I think, that most fans are really going to notice outside of the touchback going to the 35 now instead of going back to the 30. We've talked about this.
Yeah.
I think it's going to create more returns.
It should.
Because you're going to see fewer teams willing to kick the ball through the end zone because they're not going to want to give up the ball. The average return last year, the average start point was like the 28 and change.
Yeah, exactly.
So there really wasn't a lot of difference between, okay, if we kick it out of the end zone or if we allow them to return it, the difference is 1 yard.
Yeah.
Now it's like 7 yards.
And they might break one.
And they might break one. Now it's 7 yards. And that's a little more significant.
And you don't want
that starting field position is huge.
And I don't care if you have the number 1 defense in the league. Nobody wants to have to defend only 65 yards of the field.
Right.
You want
Or 20 yards before you're in field goal range.
Yeah, exactly. So I think this is the league's kind of their compromise to that is like, let's make it, I was listening to Troy Vincent in the meeting today as they were talking about those rule changes. And they were saying, it was like, the average is 28.8. The kickback was at 30. There was no harm, no foul. So they were like, okay, we're going to do this. I mean, we got 23% were returned, only 7 returned for touchdowns. So it's like we want to make this more of a penalty to get that play to being exciting again.
Yeah.
Right? And it got more exciting than it was the previous year.
So it took a step in the right direction. Let's take the next step.
Now let's take the next step. And
there weren't injuries.
Yeah,
that was good, right?
Yeah, injury numbers were down 47%, I believe.
Yeah, concussions were way down.
Concussions were way down.
So
it seems like a successful first year. Now let's make it even better.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what a lot of these rules were just simply
tweaks.
adding on
and
tweaking them. And like you said, you're not going to notice much. Now, will we still have to do our dynamic kickoff video? I probably still have to do that.
Probably.
We'll change it for the new rules because I'm like, you can't just add that part into it. But
I still don't like the name.
Fans, I don't like because it's not.
What's something dynamic about it, right?
Yeah, it's like it's hey, here's the new kickoff.
It's different.
Yeah. This isn't Batman and Robin.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
This isn't a dynamic duo. This is kickoff.
It's a new rule,
It's a new kickoff rule.
It's like we have a play now.
One thing they tabled, however, and the owners will probably talk about this next month, and they could still pass this, was the change in the onside kick rules.
Yes.
You still aren't going to be able, as we sit here now, you can only do an onside kick in the fourth quarter if you're trailing.
Yeah.
I don't see why they wouldn't adjust that and make that available at any point, because if we score 5 times and I want to go onside every single time, why can't I?
Why not?
Why not? That's my choice. It's not the right
at all?
choice, but it's my choice.
Right.
Yeah.
Chiefs in the Super Bowl were a perfect example too.
Yeah, they scored with, I think it was like 24 seconds left in the third quarter, down 31-6 at that point, and they couldn't go onside.
Which that's one of the moments where you're like, come on. I mean, these guys want to do it, and they're willing to risk it. You're already down
in that
enough.
game.
Yeah, exactly. It was, why have to hinder them in that type of moment? So
we're choosing to do a really low risk play. Okay, we go for it then.
Yeah,
you know,
desperation.
Right. Why do we care when it is?
Yeah, I mean, I would even say just open it up to the second half. Open it at least that.
At least,
adjustment. Maybe you want to get the game going in the first half. You don't want to slow it down, adjust it, have to do all this stuff. Second half, okay, let's go for it.
Quite frankly, the onside kick can be an extremely exciting play.
Yeah.
If that ball starts hopping around a little bit.
Oh, yeah, you get the Hoppin' John going.
Yeah. Now, it's also maybe a higher injury rate, and that might be one of the considerations there, because you've got a bunch of guys. Yeah, I mean, you got, for an onside kick, you got your front row guys who are just there to be crash test dummies.
Yeah, exactly. They're like when you see
You went that high hop,
Yeah, exactly.
Blast people.
I was thinking of like those old movies where they have like the villagers that learn how to like fight. Like medieval times, they got those little scarecrows up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They run into them. Robin Hood men in tights. Maybe we should take them into battle. That's what you're standing up. Yeah. Oh God, yeah.
But that's what you're there for. And then that second level of guys is your hands, your real hands.
Your
guys.
real hands unit.
Yeah.
The first guys are the blockers, almost like the offensive linemen of that
You
group.
see a bunch of tight ends. You see a bunch of linebackers there in that first
some
group.
running backs. Yeah, even a couple running backs.
You
got to
have some hands, but you're really there to get hit.
Yeah, you're questionable. I mean, the age of Craig Wolfley being on the front line of the
Oh,
hands
that's
team
great.
are over. You talked about us one time.
It's still such a low percentage play because you have to announce it.
Yeah, you
there's
have to
no
announce
surprise
it.
on side.
Everybody
so that's
knows,
not going to change.
And it's not like you're getting into the game like, okay, well, boom, we got this front row. We're just going to surprise them. No, you get to pick out your hands unit. You get to send them out there.
We
and
are
everybody gets
kicking
adjusted.
an onside kick, and the formation changes.
After this commercial break.
Right, after the commercial break. You can
Right.
take it over and
Figure it out. Then you're going to call timeout. Well, they were going to kick it that way. We're going to call timeout. Now they're going to have to kick it that way. All right, come on. They also aligned the postseason and regular season overtime rules by granting both teams at least 8 possessions of the football. So if the team that wins the toss goes down and scores a touchdown, it used to be in the regular season the game's over.
Yeah.
But in the playoffs, both teams got a possession. Well, now it aligns more correctly, even though it's still only a 10-minute situation. So if you can milk that clock and have an 8-minute drive and score a touchdown, the other team is still up against it when they get the ball back.
They're still running 2-minute drill. still scrambling.
Because 10 minutes isn't much.
No, especially not in the game now because, I mean, like you said, you have teams who can possess the ball for that on any given drive in a game. So
against a tired defense.
And you're even more tired.
Right.
So, you wear those guys down. It's going to be really interesting to see.
But it does take away that Denver Broncos situation where they come out and hit a play and game's over.
And it's like, oh, this is all we got? This is all we got? This is so anticlimactic, right? But I mean, and like you said, we still want to see football. We still want to see the challenge. So get a chance to respond, I think is an appropriate thing to have throughout the season. It shouldn't just be an exception.
And you can't have one set of rules for the playoffs and another set for,
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think the network thing's that big a deal, or if the game goes a little longer, I mean, so be it.
It's still 10 minutes, which is really realistically another 20 to 25 minutes of real time.
You probably had a filler show anyways. Okay, you push back your post-game show.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That's really about it. And the nightly news.
And people are streaming their favorite games everywhere anyways. It's not like I'm waiting on NBC or CBS or whatever for 4:25 kickoff and I don't get it. You can find it somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, they have also expanded the instant replay's ability to advise on-field officials if they throw a 12 men on the field flag. And replay shows it. They know that guy got off the field.
He was outside.
They can buzz down. They'll pick that up. That wasn't the case.
Well, and also here's a clarification for that, right? They can't call and tell them about.
No,
should have.
It has to be something they threw a flag on,
and they're advising on the flag,
or a ball spot. We've seen it all the time, and I'm sure it drives you nuts as somebody who actually has to call the game.
Oh God!
When the ball is here, and then all of a sudden, right before the snap, the official comes running in and moves it up 3 feet or back 3 feet, and it's like that just changed how you might address or might
play call.
Like it's 3rd and 2. Well, no, now it's 3rd and 1. Or it was 3rd and inches, but now it's 3rd and a yard and a half.
Exactly. So I think that's the right thing to do, right? Because you don't want the sky ref making the calls on the field, affecting what their human judgment is. It's to simply add as an addition to say, hey, this is what it really was. Here's a spot, or that wasn't a penalty. You can pick that up. No penalty necessary, but it has to be called. And then they're allowed to
and as I say, there has to be clear and obvious video evidence.
So it can't be the scrum.
I'm not breaking this down over a 3-minute period. It's either I watched it, the replay of it. Okay, that was obvious. That guy got off the field. You threw the flag, or that guy didn't get off the field. And that in that instance you wouldn't have thrown the flag. But so it should take care of that. It should be pretty quick.
Offsides, like an offsides penalty. A false start. Like those are the areas where the sky ref replay assistant's going to come into play.
Yeah.
It's those type of penalties.
But not to call it.
No, they're not calling and saying,
you
hey,
missed
ref,
this face mask,
you need to throw this face mask.
Which will make Juwan Taylor happy.
Yeah, exactly. But also piss him off if he's lined up like he was pre-snap and they throw an offsides. It's like, yep, that happened. God
Didn't
Yeah.
get away with that one.
They got me again.
Exactly. I was clearly in the back. I was lined up next to the running back this time. Yeah.
Max, I don't know about you, but I mean, I know people don't love more replay. I mean, they hear that and they're like, "Oh, that's terrible." I just want the calls to be as close to 100% correct as possible. To be honest, I mean, do you agree as a player? Yeah, right.
Equitable. Like make it fair, make it make sense. And I don't want it objective to just that one guy's sense, and nobody else saw it, and now you. Even if he was wrong, there's nobody to confer because they're looking at different things.
Right.
So now at least you have that second set of eyes that can say, "Yep, you were right. Nah, you were off on that
Better
one." And let's move
camera
on.
angles, right?
And you don't have that huddle up for like 2 minutes where they're playing the who's it game.
Yeah.
Hey, did you see it? Did you see it? Did you see it? No.
I think that's been more efficient. Maybe
Yeah.
they huddle up more, but the calls are more correct.
Yeah, they come in and say, "Hey, we're going to huddle in here." Okay, it's right. All right, break.
All right, let's go.
All right, guys.
This is another one. We haven't really talked about this one, Matt, but the competition committee proposed this, and it's an amendment to permit teams to designate 2 players at the time you're reducing your roster to 53 players and give those players the ability to return during the season. So the guy that now goes
from
on
injured reserve?
The guy that goes on IR during training camp.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or you can now say, we got these 2 guys and we're going to designate them to return. Training camp to the end of the season is a hell of a long time.
That's a major injury.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that heal by the end of that time.
Yeah.
Right.
And they
I think
started new
more
careers probably by the time they're allowed to come back.
Well, think of like David DeCastro's rookie year.
Yeah.
He gets hurt in the preseason, and maybe by November he's ready to come back, but because you had to cut the roster to 53 players, and you're like, well, we can't really carry him, and he's on IR, so now you would have the ability to bring that guy back.
Yeah, which
more
is
injured
nice.
reserve flexibility to me is a good thing.
Yeah.
I remember when it was only injured reserve, and I'm like, baseball had a 15-day and a 60-day, like,
They have so
why
many
can't you
different
do that?
lists.
Right.
Why do we have a finite list?
Yeah,
of
and you've already
You're on or
expanded
you're
the
done,
practice
right.
squads. You expanded the number of guys that you have available to return. What's a couple more guys that?
Yeah, get them back.
And like I said, and
it's a
now you
long
get-
season,
and it's
too.
just 2.
It's 2.
They've doubled it essentially.
Yeah, still only 2.
From 1 to 2.
It's probably not going to
Yeah.
be a rookie, but if Marquise Pouncey gets hurt in the preseason game,
Yeah.
I want to have the ability to bring him back without having to also. Before you had to carry those guys through the 53-man cut down, cut some other dudes, then place them on IR and sign those guys back.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a 12-game season anymore, a 14-game season. It might not be a 17-game season much longer. I mean, you need a
definitely
lot
not
of
much longer.
roster flexibility.
So it saves those guys that hey, I'm on the 53-man roster and then I'm not, or I didn't make the 53-man roster, but then they tell them, you just wait by the phone. We're going to call you back here in 2 days once you clear waivers. You can hold on to those guys.
Yeah, you don't have to go through that process. It just cuts down a process
Yeah,
essentially.
absolutely.
That's a good one, yeah.
You also get, if you make the playoffs now, you go from having 8 guys eligible to return from IR to 10.
Okay.
If you make the postseason.
I mean, that could be an extra month of the season.
Sure.
Yeah.
For the Super Bowl teams.
Yeah.
Right.
So that makes sense as well, but you have to make the playoffs first before those become available. Otherwise, your season's over anyways.
If you're going to have longer seasons, you have to have more roster flexibility.
And just think about when we do eventually get to 18 games, you might have to open up that game day roster.
Yeah.
Like you can't just dress
yeah.
46. We need to dress all 53 now. I mean, I think that has to be a consideration. You've already increased that practice squad, so I think this is what we're building up to.
Yeah.
So creating these little things to lead up to it says when we 18 games, okay, now unlock. There's nobody
I
non-dressing.
know why they do it, but it does make me crazy sometimes that at a home game, someone who's healthy is sitting there in sweats and a T-shirt. I think the owner could have afforded one more hotel room, one more meal, and one more game day salary. And maybe we get a scat back out there that's not usually out there. Or
And he's out there anyway, so chances are he's already eaten the meal, right?
Well,
Yeah,
that
he
too,
was,
right,
he
right.
was at the hotel.
He was at the hotel. It's just, as far as they go for vesting, right? That's what counts in the vesting,
Yeah,
the game day. So it's a logistical thing for benefits. I mean, at this
But
point,
there's also a fairness aspect to it. Like, okay,
Yeah.
this is
We
why
know you have some injuries,
you have
right.
47 players. We've got 47 players. Maybe you have a couple more injuries, so you only have 45. But we have the same amount of players. This isn't Alabama playing, Southern Utah or something where I've got 150 players on my home roster.
You got like
you
62.
got 20 on your travel.
Yeah. Well, and also here's the thing: because we have an expanded practice squad, you should be able to get up to that by the time
Yeah.
we're at 53. Right? If you got guys that's injured, pull up your practice squad guys there then.
Yeah.
At that point. So there is that where I think we've now gone beyond that. Back in the past, like you said.
Well, you get those two guys
IRs
you
and
can
all
bring
that.
up on game day already, but you can only do it 3 times, and then you get to sign. It's all kinds of convoluted stuff that.
But it might be a better game to watch even, too, with an expanded roster. It might also be good for player safety. Someone plays 5 less snaps than they would have. You keep a kickoff returner that wouldn't have been active, and he's a dynamic kickoff returner, or Preston Smith's active that last game, who was healthy, maybe makes you a little bit better defense or situational.
Just gives you another option.
It just gives you more watchability.
And you get more core special teams guys. So you're not sending your stars out like, oh my God, we got to put Connor Hayward out here. Whereas like, hey, he's been a big part of the offense. He needs a blow this time. You have that flexibility.
Or the opposite. We can't dress Trice or Preston Smith because they're not core special teamers.
Yeah,
so they have to sit for a core special teamer, and my defense isn't as good or whatever.
The league also approved the proposal by the Steelers to allow teams during the legal tampering period to actually have contact with the player.
Yeah,
you get one call.
Oh, good.
It can be a Zoom, you can be a phone call, however you want to do it, but you can actually talk to the guy, as opposed to just talking to his agent, and then the agent talks to the player, and you get
play telephone.
Yeah, you're playing telephone. Well, they said they like you. Do you like them?
You can actually have a conversation.
Pass them a note.
Yeah, they have the actual note here. Do you like me? Yes, no, maybe.
I mean, think about if it's a quarterback and you really want to talk scheme with them. Does the agent, is he a good coordinator to quarterback translator in terms of scheme? And
he's talking money.
They're not. All of this is dollars and cents for the agent.
Yeah. So that's what we're looking at, guys. They also approved teams can rub down the K-balls prior to a game.
Advance.
Nobody's going to notice any difference with that. But
it's only be looking at the equipment manager's hands.
Yeah, the proposal to change the playoff rules didn't work. The tush push, those got tabled.
Huh?
Which makes sense. I mean, because we're talking about and Mr. Rooney kind of talked about this, the rivalries matter.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Your division rivalries matter. And when now you start to do this placing, and now it's just conferences, and ranking those guys on who deserves a game.
If you're gonna do it that way, if it's just gonna be by record, then you can't play 2 division games against everybody, because everybody should be playing a semi-reasonably same schedule.
Yeah, a comparable schedule.
Schedule. And that doesn't happen because every division right now, because that's the way the divisions are. You're playing a similar schedule to the teams in your division, except for 3 games.
Yeah, 3 games are the ones that are off, and those are out of conference, out of division, that match up with similar records from previous standings.
And they're not weighted as much to get you in.
No, they're not.
Right.
So what's your division, and then common opponent.
So if you throw that out the window, if you made it just by record, everybody in the conferences would have to play a similar schedule to make it fair, because
then you lose rivalries, and you're not playing the Ravens twice a year maybe or whatever. And
you're not getting a home and a home, which is why that was right. It's a home and away to give you an equal chance at success in the division.
And you build your team to beat the teams in your division.
I think there's something to be said for that, too.
I mean, that's just the way you do it.
Personalities of divisions.
I remember talking with Marvin Lewis about that when he was still with the Ravens at that time. He was their defensive coordinator, and I call him in the offseason because he's a Washington County guy, and we're talking. I say, hey, what are you doing, Coach? He says, well, I was just breaking down some tape of the Steelers, because we got to beat the Steelers. Yeah. They're the team in our division. He said, I've spent the entire week working on the Steelers. So that's what you do, because you don't have, if you're going to play 17 games, and I got 14 of them are now AFC games, and I got to break down tape of the Titans, and I got to break down no, you're worried about your division games.
Well, and that's what's changed about the college football landscape,
it's
right?
too many. And you don't have Indiana
equitable.
Gets into the championship without playing Michigan or
Ohio State, Penn State.
Yeah.
It's like, come on. I was like, are we serious right now? Is this what we're talking about? So I think, and it keeps you delineated from the college game that's now changed so drastically. Because when I played in college, it used to be East versus West in every division, right, in your conference. Right. So it's like, hey, top out of the East, top out of the West, they play in the championship. Now it's like top 2. Well, we got Texas and Texas and Georgia that played in the conference game, and I'm like, they didn't play each other. How are we equitably saying these opportunities? Or you get the repeats of guys because you played them so much. So it makes no sense. And I think more so than tabling, hopefully they do get rid of it. Now, if we get to 18 games, now we have another conversation. We expand the NFL overseas eventually, then maybe you could talk about that, because I think now it changes, just like we went from the Central to the North for the Steelers, right? You're going to have to do some reclassifications, but not right now.
Not right now. Let's get to a break, guys. He is Max Starks. That's Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. We are The Drive here in Palm Beach, Florida, where the league meeting's taking place. We're pretty much wrapping up at this point. We're going to get to a break. That's going to do it for our – we done with hour number? No, we're not done with hour number 2 yet.
We're into hour number 2.
We're into hour number 2. Look, I can't even tell you what day of the week it is here right now. But anyways, let's get to a break. We'll be back with more right after this. And welcome back. I am Dale Lolley here with Max Starks and Matt Williamson, and we are here at the Breakers in Palm Beach, Florida. We'll be back Matt and I will be back in Pittsburgh tomorrow. I assume Max is headed back to Phoenix.
Back to the desert.
It's a dry heat.
Yes, a dry
Not like
heat.
the
this
moist heat.
doesn't happen as easily. This doesn't.
It's a very, very moist heat here.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, so
steam room, not sauna.
Yeah. Guys, I think let's assume if we can here, the Steelers get Aaron Rodgers signed.
Yeah. Okay.
That then to me leaves really one starting spot open on this roster in terms of they don't have a guy right now. They have guys, but not somebody that you could outdraft these guys pretty easily, and that's on the defensive line.
Yeah.
So I think you start to then narrow in on the draft here that's going to take place. Well, it's now April 1st, so later this month. That defensive line becomes the priority for the Steelers if it already hadn't been. And you can forget about the team drafting a quarterback in the first round.
Yeah, I think it would be a safe bet. Not early.
Not early. At some point,
At some point
not
it'll
early.
happen, but just not in the first round, and obviously not in the second round. We don't have one of those.
Yeah.
And Dale, to be honest, if you just concentrate on defense, I think you can make a pretty strong argument that they are really close, if not done, at edge, at inside linebacker, at safety after adding Thornhill, and corner. Now, they might draft one of those positions, but it's probably going to be late. I mean, they might add a free agent, but
you're not drafting a wide receiver in the first round.
Pretty much in the barn on
you
defense.
You could, I guess, draft a running back in the first round, but, I mean, talking to Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin, they both, said, hey, no, Jaylen Warren is, he is certainly capable of being your starting running back.
Mm-hmm. And Gainwell's a good number
and
two,
Gainwell's
just like he was in Philly.
Offensive line, you've got 5 guys coming back with starting experience. Now, there are going to be some shifts and things of that nature there. I guess technically you could draft another offensive lineman early if that's the way things lined up. But that's just, again, you're not drafting a tight end in the first round.
Nope.
So that leaves the defensive line.
Yeah, it's a big neon light sign pointing down to the interior defensive line.
As it should. I mean, that's the way they set this thing up because it's a really good defensive tackle draft too, Yeah,
there's a lot of good defensive linemen, and I think with the amount of edges that are also available, that's going to give us more options when it does come to 21 that you're going to get there, because everybody else in front of you, you have probably 4 that might be looking at D-line, and it's kind of like a tweener between other issues that they're going to need to answer.
And maybe they're looking for an end, not a
D-tackle or
so
a nose tackle specifically.
I've got Bob McGinn's thing here that he does on his website, Go Long, and Matt and I have talked about this, and Bob's done this for years up in the Green Bay area, and he talks to different scouts around the league and things of that nature, and they said the same thing about, for example, Mason Graham, that I felt about him. He's a 4-3 defensive tackle. He's not. He doesn't really fit in the 3-4 scheme because his arms are a little bit shorter. He doesn't have that premier length that you necessarily look for.
Extension lockout that they're looking for in a 3-4.
So if he goes early, that's fine. That doesn't affect my defensive tackle board at all. And then you start looking at some of those other guys, and
Graham's not getting to 21 no matter.
No, he's not. He's not going to get there.
Right.
But then you start
trading up for him. Or,
the Walter Nolans, the
Kenneth Grant's.
Harmon,
Kenneth Grant, Harmon.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing here about this, and this is again from him talking to scouts, he has Alfred Collins as his number 3 guy.
Oh, does
having
really?
talked to scouts.
Okay. Who's he have 2? I haven't looked at it yet.
2 is Nolan.
There's Nolan.
Okay,
Okay. That makes sense. I understand Collins, though. I mean, sort of in a Kenneth Grant-like manner.
Yeah.
He's not just a two-gapping nose type of player. I mean, he's a big-bodied guy, and the league is moving those guys all over the defensive front now, too. And Grant's a great example. I mean, these guys are big athletes with length and versatility.
Yeah, because Collins, he's like 6'5", 6'6"?
He's 6'5.5", 332.
Okay.
Here's some of the comps. These are NFL scouts comping here on this guy. He's in just a guy in there wrecking things and being a problem. Marcus Straub was a little bit more dynamic. Marcus Straub was a really good football player.
Oh, yeah.
He was a handful.
Trust me, I played against that guy in college at the pros. Yes, he is.
Yeah.
I can say that, yes.
One of the other guys says talented but inconsistent. John Henderson. John Henderson was a really good football player.
Yeah. You're talking. Are we just
They're like
naming
carbon
the
copies.
2000 NFL draft here right now? I mean, and in the SEC,
If you're going to tell me Alfred Collins can be
John Henderson or Marcus
a half a
Stroud,
step back from one of those guys,
dude,
okay.
that's great company.
Yeah.
Also, other redwoods.
I mean, I don't like that. I'm thinking second round on Alfred Collins, and now these guys are saying no, he's a first round pick.
I mean, that's a heck of a boy, especially when you look at scouts. I mean, Texas had a lot of success. I mean, but I think we kind of always focused on the offensive side of the ball. It was Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning type of conversation. We looked at him, but I go back to last year to Vondre Sweat on that defensive line. Alfred Collins played on that line with him.
Yeah.
And Murphy was a first-round pick.
Yeah,
exactly.
He was behind two guys who were both high draft picks last year.
Top 40 picks.
Yeah, I mean, similar to Georgia, right? 2-3 years ago, where it's like, oh, this is the next one up. Okay, let's take him.
Mm-hmm.
I think he fits in that mold. And like you said, Texas is playing a lot different than the Texas we've known of the last 15 years. That was a very elite defense. They put the pause on Alabama. I mean, remember that game?
Oh, yeah.
They beat the brakes off of them, and it wasn't even close. And then even to stymie a lot of their action that they like. So I mean, yeah, that makes sense. And kind of a guy I've looked over a little bit because I've been so focused on the Oregon, the Michigan guys, and everybody else. Mm-hmm. But Alfred Collins does fit into that. That's an interesting one to put him up there.
Again, I haven't read it yet, but it wouldn't shock me if they were talking about, well, his best football might be next year.
Yeah.
I mean, ahead of him. I mean, he's a
and they're saying
player.
he could be a 3-4 defensive tackle. He has enough pass rush ability that he can push the pocket and do some of those things too because he has that length.
Yeah, I was gonna say he has that length because what's his arms?
34 and 5/8.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. There it is.
Yeah.
Long arm stab. If he could learn that from Cam,
yeah,
probably for other people.
Again, they had him rated ahead of Kenneth Grant,
which is, I think more so because Grant's injury, right? I mean, I think that's what's kind of held the comparison down because he's not doing anything. Collins did something.
Yeah.
But I believe they're right there with each other.
Well,
healthy,
and the comps on Kenneth Grant reminds me a little of Richard Seymour and Kevin Williams.
Not bad. Not bad. Yeah.
Marcus Stroud's teammate, Richard Seymour.
All the same year.
Yeah, exactly. That's early 2000s football.
Which I think when you read those things,
those guys are a little heavier. They got a little more in the middle.
Yeah.
Than the
you start
the
to get an
Seymours
idea
and Strouds,
of what kind of defensive tackle draft this is.
Right.
Yeah.
Like these guys were dudes.
And they were dominant dudes.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't call it the Williams wall for no reason.
Yeah, he's a borderline Hall of Famer, and Seymour's in. And,
right. Seymour's in. Kevin Williams very well should be in or could be in.
Mm-hmm.
Those are good football players. These guys,
and they're all body beautiful, huge, long arms.
First guy
hands,
off the bus,
6'5", right? Yeah. Rare human beings, right?
They like Tyleek Williams as well.
Okay. I get it.
Yeah.
I think there's a little untapped pass rush there that we don't talk about enough too. I mean,
he can play 0, he can play 1, he can play 3.
He can play anywhere on the interior. You can slide him as long as he gets comfortable and get him some reps at it.
The one thing I recently found out about him, though, is he came to Ohio State much lighter and put on a lot of weight at a very rapid rate and handled it extremely well. A lot of those guys get too big too fast. I'm sure you could attest to it to some degree, guys you've been around.
Yeah.
But, okay, we're going to keep adding weight. We're going to keep adding weight and didn't lose quickness, didn't lose technique, didn't lose pad level. And it was like, okay, he can handle it.
Yeah, he's built for it.
Yeah. Has all those 5 guys ahead of Derek Harmon.
Wow, okay.
So
I think Harmon's a little more linear than those guys in terms of athleticism.
Still they have a 1-2 grade on Harmon, so that's 6 guys who could potentially go in the first round. Not all 6 of them are going to go.
Right. But maybe you'd be happy in any of them in a trade down situation or something like that.
Then you're looking at Jordan Birch as a round 2 guy. out of Oregon, just
Which
a
I would
kind of a
agree,
freaky athlete.
They're calling him a tackle, though?
Well, he's a 6'4", 282.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, he plays edge there. But
you could kick him inside.
He might have to do the Aaron Smith move,
you
right?
could kick him inside easily in pass rushing situations. And,
sub 4 down
Yeah.
stuff, yeah. That's what you want in there
yeah.
anyways.
T.J. Sanders is a guy that has, they're looking at as a round 2 guys, and they're saying, like, his best football is ahead of him.
And I would agree with that. I mean, he played on that defensive line for South Carolina, and I mean, you look at just what they had off the edge. I mean, it was like you kind of forget about it because there was so much edge action and pressure up. But he was a guy that benefited greatly from that because quarterbacks couldn't step up when he would press in the pocket, but he didn't get the attention that the other 2 guys did.
Yeah,
and the Steelers are going to be more in that explode off the ball mentality than they used to. I still think a lot of our listeners just think LeBeau and 3-4 and
Casey Hampton,
right.
Aaron Smith,
2 gapping and let the linebackers make all the plays.
Yeah, this is not what we call force flow or funnel to the backers type of defensive line anymore.
No, they want to get up the field and make plays and be disruptive, and he certainly is.
The guys he has with a 2-3 grade on him: Shamar Turner from Texas A&M,
production black hole.
Yeah,
started 35 games over 4 years, and okay.
Yeah.
But he does, Josh Farmer out of Florida State.
Guy I do like.
I like him a lot as well. And they said, look, he just does the dirty work. 35-inch arms for a guy who can play on the nose.
That is tremendous.
Pretty rare, yeah.
Then you're looking at Ty Robinson, who's one of my personal favorites. And I couldn't understand when we started this draft process, Max. I'm looking at all the stuff, and I'm like, why is he in the 200s?
Yeah.
Like, he was one of the first because he had the traits I was looking for in a 3-4 defensive end. Like, okay, he's 6'5", he's like 290 or 300 pounds, and I immediately turned the tape on of him, and I'm like, oh, this guy's good. Why? Like, he just goes in and wreck stuff. Like,
gives you a Kiesel-esque type of vibe.
Yeah,
to it.
like and now
he'll
he's
stick around.
He's rising up to where they're saying round 2-3 guy on him.
Well, I think also, right, it's Nebraska, right? I mean, Nebraska doesn't have the notoriety that it once had in the 90s.
Yeah.
So people tend to kind of knock them down.
That's
a peg.
helmet scouting.
Yeah, it's helmet scouting. It's not actual skill scouting.
Yeah, but he is a big, strong. They even say he could play the nose.
Here and there, and in some schemes, right?
Not your starting nose, but could do some of that.
Sub stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe I wouldn't put him in base though. Yeah.
Yaha Black from Iowa, another one, 6'5", 330. These guys are all huge.
They're all humongous. And
what kind of round grade do they have on Black?
3.
Okay, I say
we do our mock drafts on Pro Football Focus. You can't even draft Yaha Black. He's not on their list. They got like 350 guys listed, and Yaha Black is not one of them.
Which is crazy.
I don't get it. Like, this guy's a good football player. And he says he'll be a 2 technique or a 3-4 defensive end.
And he's one of the guys we talked about at Combine, especially when his numbers came in. We're like,
yep.
Yeah.
6'5", 330, and he did that?
Yeah. He's like, yep, sign me up.
Yeah. So,
there's
again,
a lot of those body type guys, though. They're
35-inch arms and
with long arms, right?
So I do think there's more guys in this draft. His next 5 guys, then Savion Jones from LSU, 6'5.5", 283, a little lighter.
He's another edge that I think his future is on the inside.
I could put I could put him inside in the.
I put a little bit. It's just a little bit of touch of inconsistency.
Oh,
with him.
Yeah.
Like not consistent hand shooting. I mean, and some of the things, the footwork things.
Yeah.
He would get double teamed and driven off the ball. Like some of those little schematic things. I mean, just from me watching LSU and calling those games. But like you said, but if you're not saying starter, I want to grow him into it.
He can come in and situationally be a pass rusher early on, and then we can teach him
ease him in
to hold up on the run stuff. And
Carl Dunbar rotations.
Yeah.
I mean, he could be the 5th, 6th guy coming in.
Put 10 pounds on him.
He ran a 4.76.
Right.
Exactly.
He's pretty active.
Fast.
Right.
At 283, he ran a 4.76.
That could knife an A gap in the NFL.
Yeah. Darius Alexander all the way down here
which is
pretty low.
It's kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, I don't know if I buy that low.
Well, here's the thing. So
he's a little overaged.
Here's what the scout said. Kind of reminds me of Montravius Adams coming out of Auburn in 2017.
Huh?
And I've talked with Mon about this, and he's like, "Look, it took me a few years to get it because in college, he was a 5-star recruit going into Auburn.
Yeah.
He said
it happens a lot. The highly talented.
I could just beat the guy in front of me.
Right. I don't need technique.
I didn't need to worry about technique or anything like that. I was just one step, throw him aside, and get to the quarterback. He said, then my coaches were always telling me hand placement, do this, you got to do that. And I never paid attention to it until he got to the Steelers and said, okay, if I want to stick in the league, I'm on my third team now. I got to start doing this stuff, and it's kind of changed some things for him.
Which made him stick around, and why he was a guy that we started depending on as a key rotational guy into that defensive line group.
But Alexander can play the nose. He can play out, so he can do some of those things for you. Jamari Caldwell's another one there.
Real quick, a lot of those 4 and 5 star D tackles never learn technique. They don't have to. They're bigger, stronger, faster.
They're just bouncing in the bar.
They're just throw guys around in high school. It's like a quarterback with a big arm. I don't have to be an anticipatory thrower because I can throw it a million miles an hour.
And there's not as much teaching going on at the collegiate
level,
right?
No.
Because you're just trying to churn guys through, and you're trying to.
Can you help me win today?
Exactly. So I think that's also going to be something that we have to look at in the future and evaluate. Are these guys learning technique? And, how many schools do they go to before it finally kicks on them? And you have to do a little bit more due diligence on it. But I think Alexander, he's one of those guys, I think he has a little bit more ahead of Montravius in that. So I think that comps a little bit off.
Yeah.
Now, he is a little bit lighter. You'd like to see him at 315, 320 doing those same things. At 305, he's going to have to probably put on a little bit more weight to play interior.
And he's got the body type to do it. I talked to him down at the Senior Bowl.
Senior Bowl was good for him, though.
Yeah. Jamari Caldwell, Omar Norman Lott, and then their last guy on here is Dion Walker, who I'm not a fan of at all.
Nah, I don't like him at all.
Yeah,
so.
too upright.
Yeah. He does not have knee bend at all.
At all. I said he's a younger,
little better
version of Dan McCullers.
Yeah. I think that probably be pretty accurate. Yeah.
One or two of the reps, you go, wow.
Every once in a while you go, boy, that looked pretty good, and then where's the consistency?
Yeah, and then you go, oh boy, back to this.
Yeah, but this draft even goes deeper than just those guys. I mean, there are 25 of those guys in this draft that, this write-up could have gone on and on with that defensive tackle class to where you can get two of these guys. You can take one in the first round that's going to be, we'll pencil him in as that starter, and then another guy that he's going to be in the rotation somewhere in the fourth round, in the fifth round, that there's going to be some value there at that position.
Because they're going to fall. There's going to be runs at other positions. I mean, we talked about that running back class. That's going to chew up a lot with teams wanting to get that second back and just have a third back in there. Because the more I got them, the less you got, type of deal. And that's what happens at day 2, right? You start posturing. So there are going to be guys that fall because you're not looking for interior defensive linemen necessarily early on.
They didn't even mention Phillips or West or Tim Smith, who's a lot like Yahya Black. I mean, there's a lot of dudes that are going to be mid-round picks that are going to be quality players.
Yeah.
I'd love to see the Steelers get 2 of them.
No, that'd be really nice. And, I mean, like you said, people that keep mocking quarterbacks to us, I keep mocking the mockers.
Yeah. Time for them to be mocked. Yeah.
You met with one of them this morning.
Yeah, I did. I was like, dude, no, we're going. All the arrows point to this. Stop saying, Jackson Dart or Shedeur Sanders. And I was like, it's not going to.
Jalen Milroe.
Yeah,
that's the other thing.
Jalen Milroe. I was like, Jalen Milroe. No, stop.
In the first round.
I think there's even 2 sides of that, Max. It's like everyone keeps mocking quarterbacks of Steelers. And hardly anyone's mocking D tackles to the Steelers. I mean, you'll still see corners.
I've seen corners and receivers.
Right,
yeah.
I'm
like Ted McMillan, I think on one of them. I was like, listen, first of all, Ted's not making it that far, and B, no, we don't. Did you not see the DK Metcalf trade?
Yeah, right. The second round pick was a wide receiver.
Yes, we've already picked a wide receiver.
It's going to be a D tackle.
Yeah. So I mean, just if you're reading the mock drafts, and they're going to start coming out even more as we get closer and closer to the draft. Realize that the Steelers are taking a defensive lineman.
Yeah. We're 26 days out, guys.
Yeah.
Stop being salacious.
Yeah. Look at the holes in the roster. Look at the team building. Look at the needs. Look at what's available.
Really, the only other position I could see is if, like, Omari and Hampton is available at 21, and I'd be like, if they did that, I'd be like, all right, I get that.
Mm-hmm. I understand it. But also, we've done offense the last 2 years in the first round.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to go 3 years in a row drafting offensive players.
Again, this draft is so deep in running backs that
I can go get them in round 3.
Yeah.
And I'm still going to get a pretty darn good one too.
Yeah.
So.
And that's just the way that's really the nature of that position. So, anyways, let's get to a break. He's Max Starks. That's Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here in Palm Beach, Florida, here at the Breakers Hotel on the island here. The ocean just a little bit over there, and I don't know, what do they call that? Is that the
Inlet,
I guess, on the other
Yeah.
side of us here?
Because technically it's still ocean water.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
We're about a mile. It's got to be about a mile wide.
yeah, if that might even.
It's not far.
Yeah, it's not far at all.
Yeah, but
I think I could jog across the bridge without going completely out of breath.
it's beautiful though here, and
Yeah.
if you haven't been here, you should get down here at some point. But anyways, let's get to a break. We'll be back with more right after this. And welcome back. I'm Dale Lolley here with Max Starks. This being the drive in Palm Beach, Florida, and the league meeting's taking place here. And Max, while the league is, they tabled the tush push conversation. What they are going to discuss, though, at future meetings is whether, and this was something that Art Rooney II brought up earlier today when we talked to him. Okay, if you're going to ban the tush push, then what about plays down the field?
Exactly.
Where the running back is stood up and then the offensive linemen come in and push him from behind. That
right?
Second wave, which used to be illegal.
Yeah, trust me.
And
I know.
Or guys, if you've ever seen the photo or the video, every time John Runyon comes out with something, some kind of ruling about something and disciplines somebody, immediately somebody go back to the old video of John Runyon diving across the pile to nail somebody on the other side of the pile.
Cleanup duty.
Yeah,
Cleanup
duty.
Aisle
5.
I got in trouble for that a couple of times. I was like, listen, don't pop up out of the hole if you don't expect to get hit, whack-a-mole style, baby.
Yeah. So, and this was kind of Art's point today. Okay, so if you're going to outlaw the tush push, but you're going to allow the aiding of the runner down the field, tell me what the difference is.
Exactly. Just because it doesn't start as such, I was like, so you can end it, but you can't start like that.
And how would you write that rule? You can't aid the quarterback. Well, sometimes it's not a quarterback. Sometimes it's a tight end that's taking the direct snap,
or a running
back that's taking a direct snap. So I think that's where the discussion has to go.
And I think that's why, because we talked about this, you don't legislate the rules at this meeting. Right, that happens before you get here. Simply a vote, but you can ask a question about it for clarification. I think too many questions got asked for clarification. That's why they tabled it and did not actually go with the ruling on it because of, like you said, when does a push port? When can it start? When can it end? If you're not going to say that a quarterback can start it at the beginning, and how does that affect other things? So then too many questions came up, so they said, all right, nix it.
Here's my problem with it. I think back to the game the Steelers played against Kansas City on Christmas Day. Pass at the end of the first half. There's a pass out to the flat to George Pickens, a quick out.
Yeah.
He catches the football. First guy comes in, hits him, doesn't get him on the ground. The second guy comes in and actually hits the defender that's trying to tackle George and knocks him off, and George goes running down the sideline for probably what would have been a touchdown, which would have given the Steelers a lead at that point. Instead, because the first guy stood him up, they blew the whistle dead.
Yeah, which was like, are you serious at that moment? Like, just because you said he stopped his moment, he did not stop moving.
He was turning.
He was moving to make a football play,
If he's in the middle of the field, immediately there's somebody there maybe coming in from behind to aid him along and push him farther down the field. So, you're going to say, well, it's only outside the numbers that we're going to blow the whistle dead right away. And if you're in the middle, if you're in between the hashes, push away.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So, to me, that's the one, like, I don't necessarily like the aiding of the runner because I can understand how that could get dangerous. If I'm 195 pounds. If you come running in from behind me, and hit me as I'm stood up by somebody else, it's going to leave a mark.
And at worst, it's going to be some lower back issues.
Yeah, right.
The next week or so.
So how is that less dangerous or than a regular play? It's actually more dangerous.
It is.
Because you're being rewarded to do that.
Yeah,
you're saying that's fine.
Yeah,
because we're going to get another 8 yards, or we're going to get another 10 yards, or you can't stop us.
And if you get two linemen that meet up there, and then they're taking them, or a couple of times where the guy kind of pulls the belt, kind of angles him and pushes him through, and we've seen guys getting slingshotted into the end zone, right?
Yeah.
A couple of times where guys are stood up at like the 1 yard line, lineman comes in, does a little quarter roll, and kind of launches the guy over him. So it's like you have to make sure that it's a consistent rule that is not left up for interpretation.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely. Like
this isn't ice skating. Right?
What's to stop somebody in a short yardage situation at the goal line from immediately having, well, my tight end's going to go in motion. He's going to drop to all fours. My running back's going to get a running start, jump on his back, and vault over the line.
Exactly.
What's the difference?
Or you're saying we're running an A-gap dive, and I have a 300-pound running defensive lineman playing the fullback position.
Yeah.
That's now going to be the wedge that you're going to want to push, right? I mean, there's so many different variations where you can kind of loophole the rule, so you have to make sure that you're making a rule that's kind of blanketed.
It's got to be encompassing.
And it's got to be bulletproof.
It's like what Mike Tomlin mentioned when he said, when I first saw the tush push, I thought that has to be illegal because you can't aid somebody on a field goal attempt or a PAT attempt.
Exactly.
You're not allowed to touch anybody. If you're vaulting over the line and you come in contact with anybody at all on the defensive
line, the top
line,
of your shoe grazes,
it's a foul.
A human
because it's a dangerous play.
Yeah, because player safety, right?
Yeah.
You don't know what you're jumping over. It's like the old thing. You jump over the wall, don't realize there's a moat there, right? Same thing. Like you're jumping over. You don't know if you're going to land on the Achilles of a guy that's pushing forward, to block. Or that guy twists his ankle or knee as he lands.
Or
There's
you
so
just
many
shoved
safety
him.
issues.
You shoved him down, and the next guy comes in and knees him in the head because
now you have an impact injury. So you can create a concussion. So there was just too many variables to that motion. So you got rid of it. Same thing can happen. Yeah, it's not a concussion, and yeah, the guy's not completely in the air, but I've seen plenty of scrums where that running back's toes, he's doing a little tippy toes
he's up,
in the middle of the scrum, but moving forward because somebody's aiding him. Guy grabs the back of the belt.
You could have taken Dree Archer, God love him, put him under your arm,
Polly Pocket style,
and just start running with him, and then throw him into the end zone in the last 10 yards.
Hey, you're good. Javelin throw him. Yeah, I mean, And there's many a time. Listen. Now, did we have many a moments where it's like where Willie, you get downfield and Willie kind of gets, and like I said, clear the pile, get him an extra yard or two. Yeah, we had a couple of those. Rack as well, Rashard Mendenhall. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure there's a safe and consistent play. And I think the tush push just opens up all that interpretation because if you're going to go ban it, now where does the banning stop?
If you're going to ban that, yet allow the pushing
down
the field, then
action,
it's not you're not being equal with your rules.
And you're only targeting one or two teams.
Yeah.
Versus overall health of the team of the league itself and making it equitable for 32 teams. You're just punishing two teams.
Yeah, because they do it well.
Yeah, and you can't stop it, and you're just mad.
So
Dallas
again,
Cowboys.
I have no problem just getting rid of all that stuff. 'Cause it used to be illegal. You weren't allowed to aid the runner.
No. It used to be a long-standing illegal rule, and then you kind of brought it back, and somebody figured out a loophole in it.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do it, make it consistent.
Get rid of all the
board.
rugby scrums.
Yeah.
Either everybody can rugby scrum or nobody can rugby scrum.
And then, or then go play rugby if you want that play, or go watch it. They got the sevens in Vegas every year. I'm just saying, you can go there.
Yeah.
It's really fun to watch New Zealand.
Let's get to another break. He is Max Starks. I am Dale Lolley. Matt Williamson will be back here at some point. But this is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network on Steelers Nation Radio. And we are here at Palm Beach at the Breakers.
County,
Palm Beach County. I'll get it right.
Yeah.
By the time we're done with the show today, I'll get it right. But that's going to do it for hour number 2. We'll be back with our bonus hour number 3 right after this. We're back with hour number 3 of The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. I am Dale Lolley here with Max Starks. Matt Williamson's still out and about right now. But one of the another little news nuggets that came out of this is that both the Ravens and the Dolphins have standing offers for Calais Campbell right now. You played against Calais Campbell.
I remember when he was a rookie in Super Bowl 43.
He's been around for a while.
Been around just a smidge.
And is still an effective player.
Well, you can't hide 6'8".
Right. But it brings me, people were like, well, at some point Cam Hayward has to start slowing down. I'm like, Calais Campbell, their games are kind of similar.
Very similar, and he's older. And they're still getting it done because there's one thing about the skill and the size. You can't replace the size, but B, the experience and the savvy and the technical
and the old man strength.
You can't quantify old man strength, right? It's like, hey, this dude just bales hay. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, I don't know how much he can bench press or he can decline, but he can bale hay for 2 hours.
He's
straight.
got those long arms, and he
Yeah.
can lock you out and walk you back to the quarterback, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Long arm stage. You just got to take it.
Yeah.
You just got to take it because you're not breaking his arm down.
No.
Yeah.
And their games weren't built on speed. They were built on that power and hand
force.
placement
Yep.
and things of those nature. So these guys can play longer and longer into their careers.
Yeah, and I think it's the edge rushers that you worry about. But
Yeah.
you're talking about guys who play interior, traditional 3-4 defensive.
As long as
end
they can
type
stay
guys.
healthy.
Yeah, as long as your legs don't break down on you,
Yeah.
and now there's no more cutting in the box. I mean, that I think that also has extended those type of guys' careers, because back when I played, you could still cut in the box. So we were talking about the Richard Seymours, the Marcus Strouds, right? The John Hendersons, Albert Hainsworths of the world. That's what kind of cut their
When it
short.
wasn't illegal, you'd be
Yeah.
crazy not to do that with those
It
dudes.
was like, dude, do you see how much space and opportunity there is to take that guy out of the game?
I remember being, for some reason, I had to be over by the visiting tunnel at Three Rivers Stadium where the visitors' locker room was at. I was interviewing somebody or something over there when the Titans were coming out of I think it was the Titans or the Jaguars. I can't remember. It might have been the Jaguars. It was the Jaguars. The Jaguars had Henderson and Stroud.
Correct.
And they were the first dudes out of the locker room walking down
after John Henderson got slapped in the face by his trainer.
they're walking down the ramp, and I'm like, holy mackerel, those two guys are big.
Yes.
And that early Jaguars team was built to deal with the Steelers. They drafted those two dudes to deal with Jerome Bettis.
Yes. Yes, and to deal with the interior of that offensive line, right? To go after like a Germani and an
they were
Allen Faneca.
monsters.
Yeah, they were ridiculous.
They didn't look human. Like,
trust me, imagine being a freshman in college and your Florida Georgia game. You got Richard Seymour and Marcus Stroud.
And they weren't fat. They're 6'7", 6'8", muscle.
Just muscle strong. I remember when I went on my official visit to Georgia, those were my hosts because they were like, Max, we're thinking about having you play D tackle. I was like, behind these two?
I don't look like that.
I guess I have to do a couple more sit-ups. I mean, but my God, because it was me and another guy, Albert Means, that were on our visit together, and they were our hosts.
Yeah.
And then you go look at Tennessee back then. It was John Henderson and Albert Hainsworth on the same squad. You're just like, is this what every SEC team looks like? Like, what did I sign up for?
I think I'm going to play tackle so I don't have to deal with these guys.
Yeah, I'm going to the outside. I was like, my career's going to be really short in there. It's going to look like Godzilla, versus King Kong, just fighting each other.
So Campbell turns 39 on September 1st.
Yeah.
Could you see Cam Hayward? I know he said he wanted when he signed his new deal. He said, "I want to play 3 more years." So he signed a three-year deal. Could you see him getting to the third year of that deal at 37 and saying, "You know what? I got one more in me."
No. Honestly, I think, because he has played a long time at a very high contact position, and he's done it at a high level. And like you said, how these next 2 years, now, if he goes 2 years and doesn't have any major injuries, maybe you consider it. But the wear and tear on the body, at some point you have to say, you know what, I want to be able to play with my kids when I retire.
Well, there's that.
Yeah.
But I also think, like, if Calais Campbell had retired at age 35, I think he had just won the Walter Payton Man of the Year award that year. But he had about, 80 sacks or whatever, 85 sacks in his career. Well, now he's up to 110 and a half. He's got the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. He's got the 110. Like, he's a probable Hall of Famer now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's not first ballot.
Right.
Let's not say that.
But at some point, he probably gets in.
He doesn't get past, I think, 5.
Yeah.
5 of those. He doesn't get past that. He'll be a semifinalist, 2-3 years in a row, and then he'll finally break through.
He's going to be in that room year after year, and they're going to talk about it.
Because they're going to say, is he a D tackle, is he a DN, right? That's always the conversation, but the stats will lead. He has DN-worthy stats that also played a D tackle position, and I think that will be kind of the differentiator that pushes him over. I mean, he's not Sapp, but he's going to have those type of numbers of Sapp and Simeon Rice combined, right?
Well, that's what – so for Hayward, if you look at his stats now after the season he had last year, which was,
I would say last
phenomenal.
year and two years ago
really
gets him into the mix.
I mean, eight sacks last year, 71 tackles to go with that. So he is now up to
another All-Pro.
He's another first-team All-Pro. So he's up to 88.5 career sacks. You know, if he needs to play that extra year to get into the hundreds in sack total,
I think 100 seals it.
100 seals it.
Yeah, he gets to 100, he should be good. And I think realistically, it should take him 2 years.
Yeah,
the rate that he's
right.
playing.
The way that he is playing.
Yeah, barring injury.
It'd be nice to lessen his snaps a little bit, too.
Exactly. If you get a D tackle in the draft, you
right.
can do that.
And
you can
make
do
him
that.
More effective
Yeah.
on third down.
Two,
Right?
you D tackles.
You could cut him.
Yeah.
Last year, I think he played 70% of the snaps. That was down from the 80 he had been playing.
Yeah.
If you can cut that down to 65, 60%,
Right.
and you're getting a more effective Cam.
And you're not having a significant drop off in rush yards.
Yeah.
When he's
Well,
out.
and that's
that's
the
the
big
beauty.
thing right now.
That's the biggest thing that deters that.
But if you start looking at career sacks for those defensive tackles,
And I don't know if you guys mentioned this, but Richard Seymour getting in is very helpful to Cam.
Bryant Young getting in,
Yeah,
is very.
he was more of a nose, though, But right, I mean, it wasn't a great stat guy. But the roles with Cam early in his career weren't that dissimilar.
And that's the thing. So I was in the room in 19 when we're discussing. Seymour was on the ballot, and Bryant Young was on the ballot, and they were both finalists. And the guys had to get up there and talk about them, and they didn't have a lot of stats to talk about with those guys. Now, Bryant Young had 89.5 career sacks. Seymour didn't even have that as a 3-4 defensive end. You look at where Cam Hayward's at now. He's top 15 all time in sacks for defensive tackles.
The other thing would help, though, is playoff success.
Playoff success would help a great deal, but
Seymour had a lot of that.
There's 5 defensive tackles in NFL history, guys who are considered defensive tackles who have 100 or more sacks. 5.
Wow.
And they're all in.
You're looking at Alan Page, John Randall, Aaron Donald, who's going to go in, Randy White, and Alex Karras. Warren Sapp at 96.5.
Yeah, see, I was going to say, I think Sapp didn't even get to the 100,
Yeah.
but there it is.
So, if you can get to that, you get up into that number. Right now, he is
100 guarantees it.
He's a half a
95, I think, would even guarantee it.
Yeah, one more big year, like one more All-Pro.
He's
Yeah,
one
one more
sack
All-Pro.
behind Bryant Young, who just got in.
Okay.
He needs 1.5 sacks to pass Trevor Price, who's not in, but I could make Merlin Olsen's coming up. Henry Thomas is coming up at 93.5. Then you're looking at Steve McMichael, who just got in. Bob Lilly, Jethro Pugh is on there, and then Warren Sapp at 96.5. You can get past those guys. Now you got the Walter Payton Man of the Year, and you're a 5-time All-Pro.
Yep.
Like that, those makes a huge difference. And
I think staying with one team helps too.
It does. Yeah.
I always think about like Terrell Owens. Like who's in the room, and Dale's been in this room lobbying for Terrell Owens. Who's his lawyer?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe the Niner guy, but there's a lot of teams that aren't.
Yeah, the last
the Philly guy is definitely not voting.
He didn't have him his
Not
last
the Bengal guy.
his
not the
last
Bill
7
guy,
years in the
right.
league. He didn't have it's usually wherever that guy was at the most or the longest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's not like Rod.
Who's really going to stick their
Woodson,
neck out for him? Right?
Who he was great with one team. He was great with other teams. He won Super Bowls with other teams. Like, okay, we get it. It's Rod Woodson.
Mm-hmm.
But if you turn into that mercenary where you're doing year after year of the different team,
year, 2 years here, there,
Right.
and you just
and you might not have been the most popular guy to begin with.
and
right.
you weren't a great dude in some of the a lot of those places. You're throwing people under the bus. You're
selfish or whatever. Right.
You're doing sit-ups in your driveway. Those guys are voters. And
you're crying on interviews.
Yeah.
With your glasses on.
I think being one team helps a lot.
Yeah.
Real quick, since you have the list up, what D tackles active are like nipping, or who's right behind Cam in active D tackles?
Well, I'm going to look here at the Hall of Fame monitor, which actually measures everything in a guy's
Adds it all
career.
up, yeah.
And if you look at Cam now, he's got a 71.93 score. Excuse me, which puts him right behind Geno Atkins.
Okay. He's a better case than Atkins.
Yeah, he does have a better case.
But ahead of guys,
career.
but ahead of guys of like Buck Buchanan, Bryant Young, Steve McMichael, who've gotten in. Right behind Alex Karras is closing in on Fletcher Cox, closing in on Ndamukong Suh, who again was one of those mercenaries.
Yeah, exactly.
He'll have a better case than them after a year or so if he doesn't already.
Closing in on Henry Jordan. They maybe can catch Cortez Kennedy, some guys like that.
Yeah,
now you're
Kennedy's in.
Now
Kennedy's
you're talking about some dudes there.
Yeah, no, that's a heck of a crew there.
Yeah.
One more big year would go a real long way.
Yeah, because I think he has all of the other intangible stats. And then you also talk about how many balls he's batted down to the line of scrimmage.
Right.
I mean, you don't even talk about the pass deflection because he's a D tackle, but
it's phenomenal.
That was a huge thing for his career. That was very rare. So, I mean, he
kind of a new development of the last 5 years or so, too.
Yeah, I mean,
he's gotten to be the best in the league.
Yeah, it's like J.J. Watt-esque. Like, J.J. was really the one that
I always have this theory that J.J.,
popular.
T.J., and Cam all got together when J.J. was leaving and gave him his magic power or something.
Yeah. Here, guys, here's my magic socks.
Right.
Don't worry.
I told Cam one.
Exactly 2 inches more.
I told Cam one time during the season, I was like, you need to come up with like the Dikembe Mutombo finger wag.
Yeah, exactly. Tee-hee-hee, not in my house. That'd be a good one.
That's 2 years in a row they've been the top 2 defenses in batted passes, and he's the biggest reason why.
I've actually started to look at that with some of these defensive linemen in this draft. Like if they've batted down a good number of balls.
I think Alfred Collins is a big one.
Yeah, Collins. Harmon's been a guy that's gotten his hands on some.
Yeah.
Grant has done it. That kind of, I'm like, oh, okay, so that's going to push that guy a little bit.
I think Farmer did it too.
Farmer's got the long arms.
Yeah.
That's where the long arms come into play.
With all this quick game, sometimes you can't get home, but if I can disrupt throwing lanes, it goes a long way.
Yeah.
If I could split the line of scrimmage, just get a hand up, and they're trying to throw that now pass to the outside. I mean, and it's a big difference depending on which side he's opening up to, right? If it's a front side arm, easy bat lane. Now, obviously, if it's the other side, a little bit further. But, I mean, if you're diverting those throws.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you
or
take
just
that
making them
element
double
away.
clutch it, or the ones that don't even show up in the stat sheet. Or I
you
got
make
to
him throw it
move this arm
behind.
angle a little
He has to
goofy,
throw it
right.
behind the guy instead of throwing it out in front of him, and now your cornerback closes and makes a tackle.
Yeah.
So it's all part of the game. Let's get to another break, guys. He's Max Starks. Matt Williamson is back. I am Dale Lolley. We are The Drive here in Palm Beach, Florida, at the Breakers Hotel here in Palm Beach, where the league meeting's wrapping up today. We got a couple more segments here of the show. We'll continue to talk about all this fun stuff right after this. And welcome back. I'm Dale Lolley here with the Matt Williamson, and we are here at the Breaker Hotel and Resort here in Palm Beach. It's been
beautiful.
It's been a great week down here. I'll be happy to get back home and sleep in my own bed, but
Yeah, but it's been a good trip.
Been a good trip.
Did some cool stuff, saw some cool stuff,
Learned some things, and,
we got a pretty serious travel day tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow's going to be getting back to Pittsburgh in time to do the drive back there. We'll be back in studio and get everybody back on board here, and we'll talk. We'll start really diving into the draft at that point.
Yeah, I would say we're really
it's
deeper
draft month.
into the prospects and all that good stuff, too. Yeah.
Jerry Dulac and I are doing – we already cut our draft preview, our snippets that you can hear on all of the iHeart stations.
It's good to have Jerry sit with us, too, early in the show.
Absolutely. And, I think coming out of this, my main thought coming out of this, again, is going to go back to, the Aaron Rodgers situation. We went from day one, Mike Tomlin saying, well, we'll see where it goes. It's free agency. The second day, kind of hearing the same thing from Mike and then Omar, to today hearing from Art Rooney II, like, oh, no, we feel pretty confident he's going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Yeah, and you're hearing more and more rumbles, and I don't know how true they are about Cousins to the Browns. Like, the dominoes are starting to fall into place, and if Cleveland's not sold on Sanders, does he end up with the Giants? And I really, as Jerry said, as you and I have said all along, I don't see a first-round quarterback being in the mix for the Steelers. Even if Rodgers were to retire right this minute, I just don't think the timing adds up. Nor does the prospect.
Nor do the prospects are worthy of that. Like, you don't take the third-round guy in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to talk about Milroe in the third, well, listen, that's a different world. But no, it does seem like things are falling into place, and I know people thought this would be in place by now, but what's the difference? I mean, when you're week 3 in the season, are you going to remember any of that?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. They're not doing anything right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is the talent acquisition period.
Yeah, right.
From the time that the free agency opens until the time that the draft is held, there's nothing happening on the south side in terms of player development, in terms of, like,
they're not in coaches' meeting rooms and things like that.
There's some OTA sessions where the players come in and they lift weights and things of that nature, but the coaches aren't working with them.
No, they're busy scouting players that are on the road. I mean, it's a different world. I mean, guys are working out on their own.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin was asked about that yesterday, and he said, are you concerned about this? He said, well, no, I'm not concerned about it until, we get to training camp. Yeah, then I would be concerned. But right now, this is all just we're in talent acquisition time
I mean,
here.
it's the off season.
Yeah. He said, and really, we're working two ends of it right now because we're still doing free agency. That's still going on. That's still ongoing.
I'm sure there's conversations with some Rodgers aside, some free agents
Other
out
dudes
there.
that are out there.
Yeah. Maybe you wait till after the draft.
But
for
you're also
conversations.
looking at the draft prospects. You're going to the pro days. You're doing those kind of things. So you're not doing on the field stuff at all with any of these guys.
No, and the thing too that's pro days are really starting to wrap up too. I mean, they're almost in the books, and it gets to that point where people really buckle down in the war rooms. I mean, and I can give you some feedback on how that went, but at least back in my day with the Browns was you spend an entire day as a whole staff. Well, the running back coach wouldn't be in there for the safeties, but
Yeah.
I mean, like basically the entire scouting staff, that coordinator, that position coach, head coach, etc., and you spend one whole day ranking your safeties final board. I mean,
Yeah.
if you do that 13, 14, 15 times at different positions, some days take two, O-line, etc., you get to the end of April pretty quick, and then you spend the last time going the horizontal board. It's like, do we like our third safety better than our fourth guard? Well, let's have a talk about it.
Well,
We
this
don't
is
want to be
also
surprised on draft day.
like the Steelers haven't had a ton of pre-draft visits yet.
And then some of those are going to really start.
Those are going to
trickling in,
start to take place here. There have been none this week because
nobody's there.
everybody's here in
Right,
terms of
right.
Mike Tomlin, Omar Khan, and
Same with every
yeah.
team, right?
But I think once the Steelers get back, again, the pro day circuit is pretty much done.
Pretty close,
And
right?
so now you start to really ramp up those visits, and you may have 2 or 3 guys every day in the building coming in.
Loose ends.
Yeah.
Yeah, loose ends,
to
or I'm
check
gonna
out
spend
a
the whole day
knee
with them,
or
right.
check out that guy's arm, his elbow. With that guy, he hyperextended his elbow in late December. How's that coming along? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, and if you were Mike Tomlin and I were Omar Khan and I preferred Grant and you preferred Nolan, okay, well, we got some
Now
time
we
to
gotta-
figure it
let's
out.
hash it
But-
out.
But we got to figure it out before the buzzer sounds on Thursday night of the draft, and that might mean pre-draft visits, that might mean more research, whatever. But that stuff needs to be in the barn soon, and it's coming really quick.
Well, and that's one thing when people talk about who made that draft pick for the Steelers.
They did.
Yes, they
Yeah.
did, because those things are all talked about before the draft is actually held.
Oh, yeah.
They come to when they're ranking the players on the board. That's where those discussions take place. Like,
Yeah.
okay, we like Grant a little more than that guy. We like Nolan, or we like Nolan better than that guy, and so that's where you stack them and get that order. Which is why typically when the Steelers when it's come their turn on the clock, it's been immediate.
Right.
They don't
right.
waste any time. Look, we're not interested in trading the pick.
As long as you're not trading, you
Yeah.
should know who you pick. It's like in our-
Yeah, okay, this is the pick. There's no discussion at this point.
It's like when we do fantasy drafts with our buddies, like, it's coming.
Right.
You know what I
If
mean?
you're the
Make
guy
pick,
that's
right.
running, okay, hey, what are we waiting for here, Branch Rickey? Make a pick.
Right. We know what's going on here. Right. Yeah.
So-
So that prep takes a lot of time, and it's far from over. That's what's going to be happening these next couple, next couple of weeks.
Yeah, so it's all part of this process, and so once that part is over, once the draft is complete, that's when it matters whether or not you have everybody under contract. And even then, we've seen the Steelers
No, they'll add people. Right.
add people.
Well into training camp.
Yeah.
Let alone mini camp.
Not just the Joe Hayden signing at the end
Like
of camp.
Quan Alexander.
Quan Alexander
Yeah, right,
and
right,
guys
right.
like that have signed at the start of training camp or after the end of OTAs.
Mm-hmm.
David DeCastro retires in 1 year, so they go out and they sign an offensive lineman right away because they weren't expecting that.
And it also is, I know it's only mini camp, but you draft a 5th-round safety that you're pretty confident can help you do this and this. And then you realize in mini camp, I don't know that he could do this and this.
He might not be ready to do that this
right,
year.
Right. So maybe we better find a veteran that can, because
Just to cover our bases.
Right. We're still happy with the pick, or maybe you're not.
Yeah.
Not every pick hits.
I'm kind of
Counting on
surprised.
rookies is hard.
This year, I haven't really heard of too many signings that took place while we were here across the league.
No, it's been slow. It's been slow. You're right. And there are, I actually looked this morning. There's names.
Yeah.
I mean, there's names, and I do think the league is more conscientious of the comp pick game too. And after the draft, people will fill in holes or even add to strengths. Even if the Steelers draft a running back, doesn't mean they can't sign another one. I mean, you're going to get bargains at this point for as much cap space as teams have.
At this point, I would just wait until after the draft.
Yeah.
Because at the when the draft is held, maybe just a couple of days before the draft, that's when the comp pick window shuts off.
So I want to throw one at you. And the only reason I did is because this morning I was listening to a podcast with Daniel Jeremiah, who is here, and is very dialed in. And they were talking about the Rodgers Metcalf throwing session.
Sure.
That was just their conversation. Sure. And he said, there's that Keenan Allen fan that went to Cal that's still out there that I bet Rodgers wouldn't mind throwing to. At the price you could get him, is it a need? No. But $4 million, $6 million a year for Keenan Allen to be my big slot adult in the room, in the wide receiver room. I don't know if they were together at Cal or not, but they had to be close. No, they probably weren't.
They probably weren't. Yeah, Keenan Allen's not that old.
Yeah, right.
He just has that old man game.
And
yeah.
I did just throw it out there because DJ doesn't usually pull stuff out that he hasn't heard. And a name like that could be coming down the pipe. I'm not predicting it, but they don't draft one. You're looking at this group of receivers like, would you rather have Keenan Allen or not? I'd rather have him. Okay.
Well, I mean, the one thing that Omar Khan said yesterday when he was talking about the quarterback plan, he said, we're going to get a plan, or we're going to get a quarterback this year or next year, our long-term quarterback this year or next year. But we also want to compete for a championship this year.
That's the beauty of this Rodgers thing to me. Because if it hits, it might hit big. I'm not predicting them to win the Super Bowl, but I really believe if Rodgers is their quarterback, their offense will be better than last year. I mean, I actually put this out on Twitter last night.
Just adding Metcalf to it, it makes it better.
Right. I mean, they were the 27th ranked passing game last year. Do you really think they're going to be worse than that?
Yeah.
No.
Well, that was
right. Yeah.
I mean, and some of that was because those first 6 games of the season.
Sure.
They averaged like 160 yards a game with Justin Fields throwing the ball.
Right. And he's throwing, with all respect, to Austin and Jefferson and those type of dudes, too, not Metcalf.
Not Metcalf.
Right. And Fuatanu was in the mix. And, I mean, it was first year in the offense, which is always a growing pain.
The offensive line was
early on, there was a lot of injuries.
4 different guys made their first career start in the first 6 games.
Right.
Which also aligned with when Justin Fields was in there.
Mm-hmm. And next year won't be perfect. There'll be injuries and bumps, of course, but I'll take the over on the 27th best passing game in the league.
Yeah, I will too.
You know what I mean?
I will too.
Yeah. Not the bigger number, the better version of that.
The better version of that.
Give me to 15.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not crazy. Rodgers throwing to Metcalf and Pickens. Come on. Freiermuth.
Yeah. And, the backs being better suited. I mean, Gainwell's an accomplished receiver. We know Jaylen Warren can catch the ball.
Yeah. And if you can average 0.2 more yards per carry because there's fewer people in the box and the running backs fit this system better, year 2 of a system usually pays off no matter what. It's hard to install a new system with the guys you inherit.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. Matt, let's get to another break. When we come back, we're going to hear what Mike Tomlin had to say in his sit-down interview with Max Starks earlier this week. Some good stuff there. A lot of, there was some Aaron Rodgers talk there and quarterback talk in general. But let's hear what Mike Tomlin had to say to Max Starks right after this. Welcome back to The Drive here in Palm Beach, Florida. I'm Dale Lolley here with Matt Williamson. And Matt, as I mentioned previous to the break there, Max Starks, our colleague here, sat down with Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, how about that?
This week for a little interview on, you can check it out on Steelers.com. And if you didn't check it out on Steelers.com, we want to play it back for you here because Mike had some interesting things to say, not just about the quarterback situation, but the Ireland game and things of that nature. So interesting stuff there from Mike Tomlin and Max Starks. So let's hear what they had to say.
All right, Coach T, thanks for sitting down with us. We know it's busy here at the annual meetings. One of the things I wanted to ask, as you kind of look at 2024, right, the way the season started, 10 wins in the first 13 weeks, of course, go through a tough stretch at the end, last 5 games, not the desired result that you want. You've had time to kind of sit away from that. What do you take away from the 2024 Pittsburgh Steelers?
If you look at the people that we played, particularly down the stretch, 2 Super Bowl teams, Baltimore Ravens, being in that collection, it shows that we didn't have the goods at the end. And I just see it with sober eyes. As a coach, as a guy that puts the collective together, is responsible for the development of the collective over the course of the journey. We were not moving in the right direction in the end that put us in that elite category. That's just truth. And so for me, it's about how do we change that? How do we stay in those considerations as the road gets narrow? We got to beat everyone if we desire to be world champ, and it wasn't us in 2024. And the way that the season ended really is just a hard, brutal realization of that truth.
And so when we kind of look at what's happened, with free agency and the acquisitions, you guys were busy right out the gate. So I just want to kind of talk about some of the guys that you add, especially on the offensive side. You add DK Metcalf, you added Kenneth Gainwell. Just kind of give me your thoughts on what those guys bring to the table and what they can add to the Steelers offense.
Well, for someone that organizes defensive efforts for the larger part of my career, I can't underscore the significance of a guy like DK. It's not only the plays that he makes, it's the schematics that a guy like him controls. We've competed against him as recently as 2023, and I just know that when you're playing DK Metcalf, man, it controls how you call coverage. You're very cognizant of one-on-one matchups. And so there's a statistical component of his contributions, but there's also an intangible component of his contributions that get distributed across an offensive unit to others that's equally as exciting. He's a difference maker. He is really significant. And so we're really excited about acquiring him. And with Gainwell, man, we played Philadelphia late in the year. He made some subtle yet really significant plays against us. Third down plays. 3rd down and 6, they throw him a swing route. He splits 2 defenders and gets a new set of downs, and that ends up being a scoring drive. I'm excited about getting a space player like that, a guy that can win in one-on-one circumstance where you could throw a swing route to him and absorb very little risk with big-time potential gain. He's also a very reputable special teams contributor, not only as a return man, but as a kick coverage guy. I don't think he gets enough credit for his talents in that area.
Now, year 2 for Arthur Smith in Pittsburgh, having the helm of the offense, what are you looking at some of the changes and improvements for that offense with that stasis?
Certainly when I talk about rookies, for example, it's reasonable to expect significant growth between year 1 and year 2, but I can apply that analogy to any and all of us. As you mentioned, this is Arthur's 2nd year in Pittsburgh, and so he's familiar with the culture within which he works. He's also more familiar with the players that we have, the ones that have been here and will continue to be here. And also he's been a component of the acquisition of the new players, guys like Kenny and DK. And so it's reasonable to expect him and us as an offensive collective to take a significant step forward. I know that's our mindset as we lay a foundation for it.
And so, staying on the offensive side of the ball, I feel like one of the things that's big and significant, right? You're looking at the quarterback room. 3 guys from last year all have 3 new teams. We make the acquisitions to get a familiar face in Mason. You also add a Skylar Thompson. Aaron Rodgers recently visited the team. Just kind of talk about the status of the quarterback room as it stands today.
We've been in turnover in that room. As you mentioned, none of the guys from 2024 will be on our 2025 roster. But I think that's one of the things that made Mason Rudolph such an attractive acquisition for us. We know his talents. He's certainly capable. We like the intangible quality of him as a human, as a man, as a football worker. But I just think the familiarity is very comforting. You're not always in control of continuity. All the guys that you mentioned were free agents and all on 1-year deals. And so that was a real reality that we're experiencing. But at the same time, man, I'm excited, to be quite honest with you, about the acquisition of new talent. As you mentioned, Aaron came and spent a day with us, man. We had an awesome day. And for a couple of guys like ourselves, me and Aaron, to have been in the league as long as we have and to be familiar with one another is still no substitute for spending time together and bouncing ideas off of one another and getting to know one another in a more intimate way beyond competition. And so that was exciting. The process of evaluating everyone at the position has been a fun one. But fun for me is winning. And so, you know, the players that we acquire, we got to train, we got to assimilate into our culture, and we got to get prepared to meet the challenges of competition in the fall and winter.
And with that, you know, thinking about the 2024 draft class, very few players did not have significant roles on the defense and offense as the year went on. Two of the guys I want to kind of focus on with the challenge and the opportunities, Troy Fautanu, Roman Wilson, and kind of what are you expecting in them growth-wise in year two?
You know, and it might be seemingly unfair, but such is life, man. I expect significant growth from them and jumps from them because their levels of participation, withstanding, they've been a part of our culture. They've been in the building, they've been in meetings, they understand what's expected of them, and just have gone through the cycle that everyone else has gone through other than playing. And there's so many examples, particularly in recent years of you know, sometimes a rookie year doesn't define the trajectory of your overall career. We've had guys in recent years that experience, you know, lack of playing time due to injury in their rookie year, but it hadn't shaped or defined their career. Calvin Austin is a guy that's continually ascending for us that played very little as a rookie due to injury. David DeCastro is a guy that recently retired not too many years ago, who missed a significant amount of time because of injury his rookie year, and it certainly didn't define or shape his career. And so I see it through that lens. I challenged them through that lens. I'm expecting those guys to perform like second-year guys and to make plays that guys that have been a lap around the track make.
Obviously, Coach, I'm excited about the offensive line play. And when you think about just the growth of that unit, what are you expecting from this group come this year?
I'm equally as excited. Talent acquisition is just one thing. Talent development is the next step for us. And we've made the commitment over the last several years to acquire some awesome young talent at that position. Those guys are proving their capabilities. I'm excited about the prospects of continuing to move forward with that group individually and collectively, knowing the growth that has happened and will continue to happen, not only for the individuals within the group, but the longer they play together, the more comfortable they get in their shoes, the end product. Particularly when you got a guy like at the center position, for example, Zach Frazier, man, he represented himself very well a year ago. I'm excited about the prospects of what year two might be, not only because he's going to make a significant jump, but as a hub of communication based on his position, declarations and so forth, things that we know he's going to be able to absorb. And he may be been able to absorb them a year ago, but we were just cautious in terms of some of the things that we asked a new player to do. And so there's a lot of things to be excited about within that group, and I share your optimism.
And just turning our attention to like the defensive side of the ball, there were some big acquisitions there. Obviously, you had Darius Slay that was brought on, Darren Equale, Malik Harrison, and Juan Thornhill. Just kind of talk about those additions as it pertains to the defense.
Man, it's just great to acquire savvy veteran players, their presence, not only in terms of the plays that they make, but the experience that they bring. And the way that it allows them to assist younger developing players. When I think about the acquisition of Slay, man, I can't help but think about, you know, the byproduct of that in terms of the relationship that he could have with Joey Porter Jr. He certainly is not responsible for Joey's growth and development, but it's great to work alongside someone that's done it at a high level for a long time on a lot of fronts, not only in terms of exchanging of ideas, but just seeing what a savvy veteran process looks like, whether it's over the course of a 12-month calendar or whether it's over the course, you know, of a 7-day cycle getting ready for a game. And really, it's a business model that we've been highly involved in recent years, and this year's probably nothing new. We've done business with guys like Pat Peterson in the past in an effort to allow him to be a veteran presence in a maturing secondary, if you will. And so that's that's what Darius brings us. But, all of these guys have been acquired for a reason, and there's some real tangible reasons, but we're really excited about some of the unintended consequences positively that comes with the acquisition of veteran guys that know what to do.
And, with that, as we turn our attention to like the NFL draft. Now, I know we've spent time with the football staff, and one of the things I know that you really love to do is go down to Senior Bowl practices and mix it up in the middle, in the trenches, like get on the field level with those young prospects. Just kind of talk about what you see in that group of guys, that new prospect class, and what are your expectations for those guys' contributions?
I'm impressed with the general football know-how of this collective, and it's probably for several reasons. This being a post-COVID group, in a lot of instances, many of the members of this draft class are older maybe than they would be if COVID didn't happen, and so you see a level of maturity that's really attractive across all positions in terms of some of the guys and the amount of experience that they have. You couple that with just the expansion of the college football season and what that provides guys in terms of growth and development. I mean, I was just with, guys from Texas, Ohio State, and Notre Dame, for example, just this past week in some of my travels. And when you identify those groups, you're talking about groups of kids that played 15 and 16 games. And, when you and I came through, man, it was like an 11-game schedule.
Yeah,
okay?
Exactly.
And so when you look at it from that perspective, right, 5 additional games, man, we're talking about big-time growth and development opportunities. And I see it in the way that they conduct themselves, but I also see it in their game tape, in the maturity and the development in their play, whether it's technical or from a football intellect perspective. And so that's exciting about this group. Certainly, it's a talented group every year, but I think the experience coupled with COVID and the additional games makes this a really interesting and attractive group.
And I think one of the things that's coming up this season that's really important is the Steelers are going to travel international for the first time in 10 years. Fans are excited about it. I know I'm excited about it. I want to get your thoughts on the opportunity of playing in Ireland.
Man, I'm excited about it. All I think about, man, is the late Ambassador Rooney and how excited he would be for this. And so for me, I'm excited to talk to the guys about it, to educate them about it. But more important than anything else, I want them to know what a big deal this would have been for the late ambassador and what an opportunity it is for us to take our American game global, man, and represent not only our sport, but this country internationally, man. It's a humbling experience for me and for us, and excited about it.
And now I know, Coach, you don't have hobbies. You famously said you don't have hobbies. But you've got to do something. What, like in the free time a little bit of free time that you had, right? What is it that you do that just kind of gets you back to base?
I try to pick one thing. I get hyper-focused on things, and that's just my nature. And so usually I'll pick one thing that becomes my off-season hobby, if you will. Last off-season, it was boating for me. I wanted to get better at boating, managing a boat, driving a boat, all the things around boating is where I spent a lot of time. I enjoy learning about real estate. It's been another off-season hobby of mine. But for me, no matter what I do, I probably like to delve into it with a little bit more intensity than most. And so, I hesitate when I call it a hobby because of just how I'm wired. I haven't discovered what this season's hobby is going to be, but I've enjoyed, those are 2 examples of things that I've gotten focused on in recent years that's been very enjoyable for me.
Well, Coach, I appreciate the time as always.
So
thank you for sitting down. Enjoy the rest of the meetings, Coach.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
You know it.
That was Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin with Max Starks. I guess that was Sunday. I've lost track of all days.
Yeah,
down here,
days are kind of flowing together.
Did want to play that back for everybody who didn't get an opportunity to hear or see that. But
real good.
Yeah, and it's been a great week down here, Matt.
It has. I mean, this resort hotel is unbelievable. The party last night was really, really cool. Find out some things. I mean, everybody that's anybody in the NFL, including you and I, are down here, taking care of business. Where else would we be? Bringing you good coverage, man.
That's what we do here on Steelers Nation Radio. That's why you don't want to go anywhere else. This is where you got to be at.
And Wednesday we're going to be back as a regular drive, assuming flights don't mess us up or anything crazy. But I guess there were some tough ones coming out here today. But who knows?
As we found out while we were down here this week, Mother Nature
subject to change here.
Mother Nature can put her foot in the door and force you to change some stuff up.
You guys had to change a lot of things on the fly all week.
Yeah. Well, that's just the way it goes. You got to be light on your feet. You
Yep.
got to be willing to adapt.
It's been
adapt
great, though.
and survive. But it's been a lot of fun. Next year, I believe the meetings will be on Max Starks' home turf.
I think so. Yeah.
Back in Phoenix, Arizona. So.
Cool.
Looking forward to that one.
That was a blast a couple years ago,
We've got a great burger joint down there that we check out.
Yeah.
Can't wait for that. But that's going to do it for our coverage here from the 2025 NFL meetings here in Palm Beach. For my partner, Matt Williamson, from Max Starks, who has stepped away. For Justin Miller back in studio, making sure we stay on the air. We also got to thank Brian LaMartino, who came in and did that on Sunday.
Group effort.
It's been a group effort. We appreciate that. I am Dale Lolley. We thank you for listening to this edition of The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network.
Steelers football happens here. The Pittsburgh Steelers Audio Network.